Chapter 672. When Yi Qinghan faced 16 people at once, the top 3 experts on the wind cloud list were all moved. This combat strength was not much weaker than theirs. However, facing Li Feng, they still had no chance. After all, this existence was still a legend. He beat the young people of an era to the point that they did not dare to speak and had to lower their heads when they met. With these people as targets, Yi Qinghan's progress increased by leaps and bounds. He went from 1 to 2, to 1 to 16, and then to 4 victories. Finally, God's organization was scared. Yi Qinghan's strength seemed to be inexhaustible. Even now, he hadn't rested. 9 Remoteness Master did not know that Yi Qinghan had the primal chaos divinity source, so he chose to stop the fight. Instead, he asked the 3 experts of the wind cloud 3 heavens to fight. These 3 experts had been famous for a long time and were incomparably powerful. They could almost crush the last disciple of a high god. This was especially true for Laughing at the Heavens, who had not lost a single battle. He had crippled the blood soul and suppressed the blood soul. If it were not for the primal chaos high god's pleading and the 9 Remoteness Masters' words, the 2 of them would have been crushed into pieces by Laughing at the Heavens. Laughing at the Heavens fought 3 battles in a row and suppressed 3 high god's disciples. The last one was directly crushed and his godhead was taken away. This was the first time he had been tied up with god-binding chains. Then, Pangu Heaven attacked and killed a high god's disciple. These disciples were all abandoned by the high gods. They did not dare to face 9 Remoteness Master, so they gave up on their disciples. Pangu Heaven and Xian Yuan Tian did not hesitate to kill. The 5 experts were either suppressed or killed. There were only 30 people left. God's organization had less than 60 people left. This time, no one was willing to fight. Many of the foreign experts were crying and begging 9 Remoteness Master to leave. As for the foreign experts and God's organization members, they could not escape. Xian Yanxue joined the fight and killed 4 people. God's organization had 50 people left. The insane sect did not have many people left, but it was enough. The 50 people would rather die than fight. They kept retreating with despair in their eyes. Does it feel good to be bullied? Ha! I haven't been so happy in a long time. The 9 Remoteness Master laughed loudly. Ha! Wuyo, Qian Kuan, and Zhong Tian's faces turned purple. After this battle, the younger generation of God's organization would be cut off. At this moment, they couldn't care less about their reputation. They bowed to 9 Remoteness Master and begged him to show mercy. Supreme Venerable, please be magnanimous and forgive us this time. We are willing to compensate you and give you our land. The central heavenly deity said helplessly. Then what about my 1 million supreme-grade divine crystals? Does it still count? The 9 Remoteness Lord asked indifferently. Qing Jingshan's expression flickered. He had to pay 500,000 supreme-grade treasures, not high-grade treasures, but supreme-grade treasures. If God's organization and the College of God took out 500,000 supreme-grade treasures, their foundation would drop and they wouldn't even be able to stand up to other organizations. It seems like you want to renege on your debt, or you won't give up until there is only 1 person left. Then let's continue to fight until God's organization is annihilated. 9 Remoteness Masters said sternly. If they continued to fight, they would be bullying them. However, when Kuang Zong was bullied, God's organization was happy. Now that they were being bullied, they understood how angry Kuang Zong was. When Kuang Zong learned that Yen Yunbei and the other souls had been saved by the 9 Remoteness Master and that they could be reincarnated at the very least, they suppressed their sadness and became extremely excited. Looking at God's organization's expression, they wanted to beat them up again and kill these 50 people as well. If God's organization wanted to train another batch of elites, it would take another 3,000 years. All right, we will pay back the 1 million supreme-grade divine crystals as soon as possible. We will not renege on our debt. The central heavenly deity said helplessly. Ha! I have finally won once. I am not the god of gamblers. The happiest person was not Kuang Zong, but the god of gamblers. He had gambled his entire life and finally won once. One could see how excited he was. Since God's organization had compromised, Yi Qinghan could not be bothered to kill them anymore. Now that God's organization was defeated, Kuang Zong would have a chance to develop. There was no benefit in forcing them into a dead end, so Yi Qinghan nodded and agreed. However, the Snow Tribe's great elder had a bitter expression. He glared at Xian Yanxue and said, "Since the competition is over, please return Shui to the Snow Tribe." What did you say? Xian Yanxue raised his eyebrows and hugged Shui. He said domineeringly, "She is already mine. She has nothing to do with the Snow Tribe." Shui-er's face turned red. Her godhead was sealed, so she could not resist. However, logically speaking, since she had lost, her life should be decided by Xian Yanxue. "What do you want?" the Snow Tribe's great elder asked angrily. "I just want to marry her. However, it has nothing to do with your Snow Tribe." Xian Yanshue's tone was serious. Shui cannot be married off. The great elder refused without hesitation. The snow god physique was rarely married off. It was rare for one to appear even in 100,000 years. As long as she was nurtured well, the Snow Tribe would have a high god priest. How could they allow Shui to marry off? You don't seem to understand the situation. When you sent Shui out, you should have understood that once she lost, she would no longer be a member of the Snow Tribe. I can do whatever I want. Xian Yanxue said disdainfully. You can come and snatch her, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Snatch? Snatch Shui from the crazed manor? That would depend on one's ability. Without a high god priest, there was no way he could fight against the crazed manor. If a high god attacked, the 9 remoteness master would definitely kill him. Let's go home and get married. Xian Yanxue hugged Shui and turned to leave. The crazed manor was decorated with lanterns and banners. The 9 remoteness master was there personally. Even the god of gamblers was there to witness the marriage. Regardless of whether Shui agreed or not, Xian Yanxue forcefully went through with the wedding ceremony. Shui wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She couldn't use her divine power, let alone escape. She looked at Xian Yanxue with tears in her eyes and said angrily, "Hurry up and undo my restrictions." "Undo the restrictions, and you're not allowed to run. You're going to sleep with me," Xian Yanxue said seriously. "But I won't run." Shui's eyes flashed cunningly. She snorted in her heart and thought, "Little girl, I'll kill you." Xian Yanxue was confident that Shui wouldn't be able to escape. Even if she did, she wouldn't be able to escape from the crazed manor. Shui was wearing a flawless white robe. She was perfect like a fairy. Her deep eyes shone as she said softly, "Since we're going to sleep together, there should be wine. Go and get some wine. We'll have a good start. At least I don't have any ill feelings towards you. Our relationship can be cultivated. Drinking wine under the moonlight shows our spirit." Hearing this, Xian Yanxue immediately ran back to the crazed manor's main hall and asked Yi Qinghan for the best drunken god brew. Inside the room, Shui took out a bag of medicine from her yin-yang ring. It was the aphrodisiac powder, the #1 aphrodisiac in the mythological plane. It was said that 1 gram of it could make a dragon go crazy. She was going to kill Xian Yanxue. Chapter 673. The gates of the southern mountain pass were wide open, welcoming all the heroes of the world. No one dared to provoke the southern mountain pass, and no one dared to bully the weak. The crazed manor's territory was decorated with lanterns and banners. It was a scene that could not be seen in the outside world. Yi Qinghan arranged for the injured to be healed in a separate dimension. Then he and Emperor Yi dealt with the aftermath of the auction. At night, Xian Yanxue and Shui came to a lake in front of the crazed manor. Snow fell, crushing the branches, and the surface of the lake was frozen. Shui was wearing a snow-white robe, and the wind and snow collided with the sky, creating a different melody. Xian Yanxue looked at Shui's back, and his heart was inexplicably restless. Although Shui was teasing him during the competition, he believed it now. "Are you really the one I'm destined to be with? Did you and I reincarnate just for this moment? Can we really remember each other when we shed tears?" Xian Yanxue, who had always been unrestrained, looked at Shui Er's back with infatuation. She was so perfect and flawless. No wonder she was recognized as a goddess in the mythological realm. Shui Er picked up a drop of snow with her slender fingers. She tapped the ground and floated in the air. She was surprised to see that the people of Quang Manor looked like a happy family. They were even more united than the Snow Clan. Quang Manor was a huge manor. It was much more complicated than a sect. They should be fighting and scheming against each other. Why was it that they were more united than a sect? Shui Er looked at the crazed manor's territory, and her heart slowly changed. Maybe this is Yi Qinghan's unity and the courage of the crazed manor? To be able to reach this step, one must first have a great image. One must be brave enough to take the lead and treat everyone as family. Only then would one be respected by the world and be supported by all the sects and clans in the territory. The army of Guangzhong was extremely dignified and orderly. They did not disturb the people and did not bully them. If anyone was in trouble, they would not hesitate to help. They were deeply loved by the people of Guangzhong. This wasn't just the case in this part of the crazed manor. Every part of the manor was like this. Yi Qinghan wasn't the only one who was able to achieve this. It was the righteousness of the entire crazed manor that was guiding its people. Shui Er was shocked. She had been disgusted by Guangzhong's arrogance, but now, her attitude towards Guangzhong and Xianyan Shui had changed. Xianyan Shui quietly followed behind her. As the saying goes, haste makes waste. Once she finished walking around and changed her mind, she would drink this jar of drunken god wine. Then she would be his. Yi Qinghan was in favor of evil Nian Shui taking share. Share's talent was destined by the heavens. As long as she was nurtured by a superior god and given enough resources, she would definitely become a superior god. Therefore, he ordered everyone in Guangzhong to cooperate with Xianyan Shui to take Share down and conquer her heart. It was winter, and there was no need for the path of snow. Heavy snow fell and piled up like mountains. Lolan's blade sent out 100,000 soldiers and formed a huge heart-shaped formation. An arrow pierced the heart and pointed at Share. No matter how she changed her position, the army would follow. Share was amused. She covered her mouth and smiled. "Madam, why don't we have a drink under the moonlight?" Xianyan Shui grinned and took out Yi Qinghan's drunken god wine. It was very strong. What woman couldn't it handle? He could push her down if she was drunk. Share's fingers clasped together, and the ripples of amorous love appeared in her palm. She smiled gently and said, "You're quite considerate to arrange such a show. Since that's the case, I can't not give you face. I heard that your 9 Heavens evil sword art has reached the great perfection realm. It's swift and fierce, and it can shake the 9 heavens. I've never seen it before. Show it to me, and I'll drink this jar of drunken god wine with you." Share reached out and took the jar. "I can't let you get away with it. Today I'll make you cry first." When Xianyan Shui heard this, he knew that this was the best time to show off. The vanquishing evil sword was unsheathed, and the sword chi shattered the snow and stirred the mountains and rivers. Without moving, a snow dragon was formed, and it roared for thousands of miles. Xianyan Shui's elegant figure was incomparably carefree. With a shake of his hand, 3 green lotuses appeared. The sword chi was evil. The sword chi was not only swift and fierce, but it was also beautiful. It was as smooth as flowing water, and the army on both sides were mesmerized by it. 9 Heavens evil sword. The evil chi soared to the sky, and the sword chi soared to the clouds. The sky could be seen. The great Tao roared, and strange phenomena appeared. Share looked at Xianyan Shui's sword, and her eyes flashed cunningly. She opened the seal of the drunken god wine, and directly stuffed 5 grams of ripples of amorous love into the jar. She shook the jar with her jade-like hand, and an even more unruly smile appeared on her face. After a set of swordsmanship, Xianyan Shui laughed heartily. He took the wine jug and brought Shui to the lake in front of the Guangzhong. He took out some delicacies and spirit fruits, which looked different under the moonlight. Share secretly swallowed a golden pill and drank with Xianyan Shui. The moment the strongest wine entered their stomachs, a warm current rushed to their limbs and bones, covering the power of the ripples of amorous love. Xian Yen Shui thought that this was the drunken god wine, and could not help but praise it. Cher was very generous, and she kept drinking with him. How could Xian Yen Shui fall behind? He drank 3 bowls in a row, and the boiling blood in his body surged. His body reacted, and his face turned red. Continue drinking. A man can't say no, don't be a coward. Cheers. Cher was dizzy from the wine. This wine was too strong, and she poured another bowl for Xian Yen Shui. Xian Yen Shui did not expect this wine to have the strongest ripples of amorous love. After drinking 4 bowls of drunken god wine in a row, even a dragon would be impulsive, let alone a human. Xian Yen Shui's bestial nature was unleashed, and his eyes were bloodshot. Shui smiled gently and leaned into Xian Yen Shui's arms. As soon as she was in his arms, she struck 18 major acupoints on Xian Yen Shui's chest, sealing his godly power. His divine power was sealed, but the medicine was too strong, and he could not stop it. The feeling of not being able to get what he wanted almost drove him crazy. He felt like his body was about to explode. TKSK, how does it feel to be teased? Cher asked playfully. Xian Yen Shui's brain was about to turn into paste, and he realized that he had been teased by Cher. Go down and take a cold shower to calm down. Cher jumped up lightly, and with a wave of her hand, the thick layer of ice on the lake broke, and Xian Yen Shui, who was filled with lust, was splashed with ice water. Xian Yen Shui felt like he was going crazy. His lower body was swollen, and his muddled mind was cleared by the ice water. Seeing Cher laughing in the air, he was so angry that his teeth itched. He had teased others all his life, and in the end, he still fell into Cher's hands. What a tragedy! Chapter 674. In a world of ice and snow, Xian Yen Shui was so angry that he laughed. This feeling was too good. He had been drugged with the strongest aphrodisiac, drank the strongest drunken god wine, and had the most beautiful girl in front of him, but he could only bathe in snow. His blood was boiling, and he wanted to freeze the aphrodisiac. Was there anything more miserable than this? Clapped her hands and laughed. Thinking about how she had been teased in public, she became playful and shouted, "Look, someone is running naked." The blades of Lulan did not disperse. They swarmed over, and a total of 30,000 people surrounded the lake. They pointed at Xian Yen Shui and discussed. Xian Yen Shui's head exploded, and he jumped into the lake. How could he dare to come out? Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi ran out. Seeing Xian Yen Shui being played so miserably, they couldn't help but laugh. Even the usually calm Emperor Yi was about to cry. Many people in the crazy manor heard the news and came out of seclusion, especially those who were familiar with Xian Yen Shui. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see Xian Yen Shui make a fool of himself. He had always been unrestrained and played with others. Today, he suffered such a big loss. It was unlikely that something like this would happen again in the future. Xian Yen Shui hid in the water. Because he had no divine power, he couldn't breathe. He could only come out of the water to take a breath. However, when he saw that everyone was familiar with him, and some of the older generation experts who had not left to explore the crazy manor, they were all attracted by Shui's cry. Seeing the arrogant Xian Yen Shui, they almost laughed out loud. They took out their image stones and recorded Xian Yen Shui's current appearance. "Brother Yi, hurry up and undo my seal." Xian Yen Shui felt like he was going crazy. Tomorrow he would become famous, perhaps even more famous than Li Feng. He would become a legend that could never be broken. Don't let him freeze for an hour, and the aphrodisiac should be enough. Otherwise, you will have to take responsibility. Shui rudely stopped Yi Qinghan. Thinking about the amount of aphrodisiac in Xian Yen Shui's body, even 10 women might not be able to resist it. She didn't want to suffer. "Brother Yi, I helped you a lot. I'm so embarrassed. Quickly, help me undo the restriction." Xian Yen Shui was shivering from the cold, but the blood in his body seemed to be boiling. His eyes were red, but he still had some rationality. It meant that his willpower was too terrifying. He hadn't shown his full strength in the arena. "Ha! I'm dying of laughter. I think you're so cute. The divine bird flew out of his body and mocked Xianyan Shui. With the divine bird and Shui working together, Xianyan Shui fell into the lake and didn't resurface for a long time. Yi Qinghan's expression changed slightly. He coughed dryly and said, "Everyone, let's disperse. There's nothing to see." Pfft. In the end, Yi Qinghan couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. He reached out and pulled Xianyan Shui out of the lake. He found that Xianyan Shui's blood was about to explode. He could only look at Shui and throw Xianyan Shui to her, saying, "Either let him explode and die, or be his wife." After saying that, Yi Qinghan pretended to be dignified and told everyone to leave. He took Emperor Yi back to the auction house and received the guests. Nine Remoteness Lord took Great Monarch Shura back to Nine Remoteness and promised to let Yan Yunbei and the others reincarnate into the crazed sect. As for when, he didn't say. After this battle, although the crazed sect had been humiliated in the beginning, their time to grow had been reduced by several times. A large number of young talents were rewarded. Half of them were given to the army, and the other half to the outer sect. As for the inner sect, priority was given to them. The outer sect of the crazed sect became the most popular sect in the mythological realm. Countless elites and geniuses flocked there. Even if they didn't want to enter the inner sect, they still wanted to enter the outer sect. There were even many large families that relied on their connections to invite people to send their disciples to the outer sect. Entering the outer sect was equivalent to relying on the crazed sect. Relying on the crazed sect was equivalent to relying on Yi Qinghan. Being protected by Yi Qinghan was equivalent to being protected by Nine Remoteness Lord. In the future, if anyone dared to bully their family, they would just have to say, "Our elites are in the outer sect of the crazed sect." Even God's organization would tremble. However, it was impossible to join the outer sect of the crazed sect by relying on connections. Talent and character were the most important. Otherwise, even the elites sent by Scandinavia couldn't join the outer sect. At this moment, Shui suddenly felt that she had been caught in a trap of her own making. Could Xianyan Shui withstand such a large amount of aphrodisiac? She couldn't just let Xianyan Shui die, right? She didn't have much love for Xianyan Shui, but at least she didn't have any ill feelings for him. Plus, they had already bowed to the heavens and earth, and were only a step away from consummating their marriage. They were already a veritable pair of cultivation partners. At this moment, she deeply liked the atmosphere of the crazed sect. There was no scheming and no messy matters. It was easy to get along with these people, so she couldn't let Xianyan Shui die. Bastard, I've let you off easy in the end. Shui rushed back to her room with the unconscious Xianyan Shui and slapped him awake. Xianyan Shui's breathing quickened. His eyes were full of greed and evil. His blood boiled, and his bestial nature was unleashed. He directly tore at Shui's robe, but his divine power was sealed. How could he tear it with his physical body alone? Xianyan Shui had never been so mad. Shui had already given up resisting. He couldn't tear her robe. His hands trembled as he looked at Shui pitifully. Shui snorted and opened her jade-like hands, motioning for Xianyan Shui to help her take off her robe. 1,000,000 words will be omitted below. It is not suitable for children. The website is not easy. Fill in the blanks yourself. Although it was a vast expanse of snow outside the Kuang Manor, there was a hint of spring in the air. Occasionally, there would be a soft moan that would cause the world to tremble. That night, Xianyan Shui's name spread throughout the 3 god kingdoms, and even the wretch bloodline. The clan elder was so angry that he almost wanted to capture him himself. However, when he learned that Xianyan Shui was with the disciple of the 9 Serenities Lord, Yi Qinghan, he didn't interfere. It was a long night, but it was as fast as lightning. The sky was bright, and the people of Kuang sect had already started clearing the snow in preparation for the New Year celebration. Every winter, there would be a divine calendar New Year celebration, and it was very lively. Kuang sect was preparing for the first auction in order to attract tourists and open an auction house. Alas, it's a pity that I went to bed early last night and missed the famous Lord Xianyan Shui running naked through the snow sea. That's right. I heard that an image stone was sold for a sky-high price. However, It seems that most of it was destroyed by Kuang's sect. What a pity. Xian Yanxue came out of Kuang's sect at that moment. He was timid, wearing a cloak. He didn't dare to meet anyone. Chapter 675. Oh, isn't this Lord Xian Yanxue, ranked 4th on the wind cloud list? Everyone, come and take a look. In the quiet morning, a sharp voice broke the tranquility around the crazy manor. The divine bird suddenly roared when it saw evil thoughts Shui approaching the auction house with its head lowered. Xian Yanxue staggered and almost fell to the ground. She glared at the divine bird. This bastard is too despicable. In an instant, the auction house was surrounded by people. Most of them were people sweeping the snow, and they looked curiously at Xian Yanxue. Xian Yanxue was so angry that her teeth hurt. She slapped the divine bird away and rushed into the auction house. She found Yi Qinghan and shouted, "I'm going to kill you." Forget it. I've already taken back all the image stones I recorded last night. None of them have leaked out. You should be content. Yi Qinghan held back his laughter. Bah. Xian Yanxue patted her chest and screamed. She loved Shui to the extreme, so how could she bear to beat her up? She couldn't vent her anger, so she could only roar and scratch the wall. Yi Qinghan patted Xian Yanshue's shoulder and said seriously, "You're a celebrity now. I'm going to use the celebrity effect to start the auction house's first battle. So what?" Xian Yanxue had a bad feeling when she saw Yi Qinghan's expression. "I'm going to auction an image stone of you. It'll attract a lot of customers." Yi Qinghan waved an image stone in his hand. Xian Yanxue immediately went berserk and snatched the image stone away from him. "I still have a lot. Take your time." Yi Qinghan didn't care. He had bought all the image stones at the lowest price yesterday, and it was all Xian Yanshue's bad luck. Xian Yanxue raised her head and howled. She then looked at Yi Qinghan tenderly and said in a hoarse voice, "I used up all my luck to meet you. From now on, my luck won't be good anymore." "You've confessed to the wrong person. You've used up all your luck because you met Shui," Yi Qinghan said calmly. Xian Yanxue flailed her arms and legs, not knowing what to do. Yi Qinghan held back his laughter as he patted Xian Yanshue's shoulder and gestured for him to look behind him. "Don't worry, I'm not really going to auction it off. We'll just buy it back when the time comes. Just name your price." Xian Yanxue turned around and looked at Shui in her snow-white robes. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Shui, you've made me suffer," Xian Yanxue said, feeling wronged. "What did you say?" Shui glared at him and asked coldly. "You're so nice." Xian Yanxue immediately changed her tone. She no longer had the awe-inspiring aura of a top 4 ranker. "That's more like it," Shui humphed and ignored Yi Qinghan. She turned around and walked past the two of them towards Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi smiled as he looked at Shui's pure and holy appearance. He raised his hand slightly and actually couldn't help but pinch Shui's cheek. He joked, "Sister Shui is really as pure as ice and as pure as jade. It feels good to the touch. Brother Xie got lucky." Xian Yanxue, Yi Qinghan, Shui blushed slightly and reached out to grab Emperor Yi's hand. She had paid attention to Emperor Yi and knew that his music was peerless. She really liked this innocent and protective little girl and couldn't help but want to protect her. She said sweetly, "You're even better. Yi Qinghan isn't good enough for you. Let's go and ignore them. None of them are good people." The two of them turned around and entered the auction house to prepare for the auction. Shui's lips twitched when she heard that they were going to auction Xian Yanshue's naked image stone. She immediately clapped her hands and cheered when she thought about how she had been teased in front of everyone during the competition. This was the first time the Crazy Manor auction house opened, and they waived all processing fees. Aside from the appraisal fee, they didn't even charge a commission. This was only secondary to the flow of people. They wanted people to like the Crazy Manor auction house and trust it. The auction house didn't make money, so they didn't need to pay. The most important thing was to let the other businesses in the Crazy Manor territory benefit. The 3 divine kingdoms helped to promote the auction, and God's organization didn't dare to stop them. The Crazy Manor auction house opened smoothly just before the end of the year. The slogan of the Crazy Manor was to make their customers feel at home and not suffer any grievances. 3 days later, God's organization and Tian-K Divine College sent over 1 million supreme-grade divine crystals. The 3 divine kingdoms also announced that the ungoverned territory belonged to the Crazy Manor, and Sanqing Divine Kingdom ceded 300 small cities to the Mu clan as compensation. The citizens of the 300 cities that the Mu clan ceded didn't feel sad. Instead, they excitedly decorated the city with lanterns and colored banners to welcome the Crazy Manor army. The 1 million supreme-grade divine crystals were given to Yi Qinghan by the 9 Serenities Master. It was to give him the most basic foundation. Without supreme-grade divine crystals, he couldn't fight a long war with the major factions, let alone compete for resources. With these 1 million supreme-grade divine crystals, Yi Qinghan first returned all the high-grade divine crystals from the Holy Dragon Divine Kingdom. He also gave each of the foreign helpers 1,000 supreme-grade divine crystals as thanks. As for Yang Ru's family, Yi Qinghan gave them 1 million high-grade divine crystals and promised that if the Yang family was in trouble, the Crazy Manor would fully support them as long as they sent a message. The Crazy Manor's way of handling the foreign helpers' sacrifice shocked the world. Was God's organization so generous? They sacrificed 1 person and gave them 1 million high-grade divine crystals. Coupled with a firm promise from the Crazy Manor, the Yang family was worth it. Moreover, Yang Ru didn't really die. His soul was taken away by the 9 Serenities Master, so he still had a chance to reincarnate. There was still half a month before the auction, and many people had already traveled long distances to the Crazy Manor to auction their treasures. In order to attract customers, Yi Qinghan didn't just take out the image stone of Xian Yanxue running naked. That was just a gimmick. They had to rely on real treasures. What could be considered a real treasure? Manor Master level secret techniques were considered, and divine cores were considered. However, the most important thing was to attract superior gods to sell and buy treasures. Yi Qinghan looked at the Berserk Saber Core and couldn't bear to sell the Chaos Mana. It was a life-saving item, but other than that, he didn't seem to have anything else to attract superior gods. Forget it, I can't force it. Let's take it slow. There will always be a chance. Who knows, I might be able to attract some customers to auction their treasures. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and decided to auction the Great Nirvana Sword technique. Once it was sold, he would also sell 3 of the strongest divine cores of the younger generation. He would only sell 3 divine cores of Junzi's K and Duanmu Chun. The rest would be left for the Crazy Manor to develop. Yi Qinghan announced the treasures that the Crazy Manor would be auctioning. First, they had to attract experts at the Manor Master level. There weren't many Manor Masters, and powerful families all wanted to produce a top-tier existence in their clan. Refining divine cores was the fastest way. Once the Crazy Manor announced that they would be selling Junzi's K and Duanmu Chun's divine cores, it immediately attracted a large number of families. Emperor Yi and a few appraisers had been very busy recently. A large number of treasures had been shipped in continuously. As long as they entered the Crazy Manor's territory, they didn't have to worry about being robbed. Yi Qinghan's policy was correct. They had attracted some top-tier divine treasures. If they could use them, they would sell them internally. If they couldn't use them, they would auction them off. With an auction house, they didn't have to worry about resources. Only with resources could they support the Crazy Manor's operations. The Crazy Manor's territory was filled with people. The inns were packed, and all kinds of businesses were bustling. The elites of the world had gathered. It was almost the end of the year, but this didn't dampen the enthusiasm of the heroes. Chapter 676. No one dared to stop the rise of the Quang clan. The Quang clan did not expand their territory, apart from the Lawless Land and some of the Mu clan cities. They surrounded the entrances to the Endless Plains. The Quang clan started building the World-Suppressing Pass and the Northgard Pass to form a line with the Southgard Pass, sealing off the Quang clan's territory and the entrances to the Endless Plains. A large group of experts arrived at the 3 passes and entered the Quang clan's territory. Flying was forbidden in the Quang clan's territory. Those who broke the rules would be expelled forever, while those who broke the rules would be killed on the spot. The Quang clan's outer sect moved to the world-suppressing pass to guard the entrance. The outer sect's patriarch was Lin Wutian, and Stan Wuxie cooperated with him. No one dared to offend them. The ancient massacre god moved to the North Guard Pass, led by Di Longtian, Yi Feng, and Zhang Chuanxiu. The North Guard Pass was at the front line of the lawless land. It was a great place for training. The ancient massacre god was improving rapidly and had abundant resources. Monarch realm experts were popping up like bamboo shoots after a rain. Xia Qiue recruited the godly bird into the realm of beasts to recruit godly beasts and mutated beasts that were suitable as mounts for the realm of beasts. Lu Aotian did not want the blade of Lulan to lose, so he increased the intensity of the training by 10 times. Only the fittest would survive. Those with weaker talents would be eliminated and become the guards of the cities. The streets of the Quang clan were crowded with people. Many people were struggling to find an inn, but someone saw a business opportunity. It was the Xingyang Trading Company, a business tycoon in the mythical plane. The prince of the Xingyang Trading Company had come in person to meet Yi Qinghan. He was hoping to buy some land to build inns, restaurants, and shops. Naturally, Yi Qinghan was more than happy to have the Righteous Sun Trading Company join the construction of Quang Manor. After negotiating the annual taxes and the price of the land, Yi Qinghan rented the intersection between the Southern Mountain Pass and the Mu Manor to the Righteous Sun Trading Company. This place wasn't suitable for farming. There were mountains and rivers, and it was very remote. It was suitable for building houses, residences, and shops. The Crown Prince of the Righteous Sun Trading Company inspected the area and decided to rent it for 1,000 years. The Righteous Sun Trading Company had the priority to renew the lease, and they began construction on the same day. The Xingyang Special Commercial District developed rapidly, and the Guangzhong was very cooperative. They mobilized their people to build the commercial district, and the wages were far more than what they could get from taking the risk. Tens of thousands of houses, hundreds of inns, and tens of thousands of guest rooms were built in just 2 days. All of the houses were made of natural wood, and their fragrant scent filled the air. The interior decoration was a walk in the park for the Xingyang Trading Company. In just 5 days, the Xingyang Commercial District had begun its operations, and a large number of powerhouses became the main consumer force. The natives of the Guangzhong Manor had the priority to rent the houses in the Xingyang Commercial District. This was also one of the benefits that Yi Qinghan had negotiated. He had to first enrich his own people and then others. With a business tycoon joining the Guangzhong Manor, the Guangzhong Manor officially prospered. The closer they got to the auction house, the more people there were in the Guangzhong Manor's territory. The Xingyang Commercial District had appeared at the right time, and they were making a lot of money. Just as Yi Qinghan was counting the deity crystals, a guard rushed in and said that an expert had come to visit. Yi Qinghan asked curiously, "Who is it?" "Lord Guangzhong, I don't know either. He said that he used to be from the Endless Plains, and he hopes that you can help," the guard said respectfully. "Someone from the Endless Plains? Could he be one of the great emperors in the past?" Yi Qinghan was shocked. Which of the great emperors in the past was not in existence with outstanding military achievements? They were people who were willing to sacrifice their lives for the Endless Plains. "Hurry and invite him in," Yi Qinghan said hurriedly. "Also, invite Stan Huangtian. Tell him to come see me." Stan Huangtian was an ancient great emperor, so he should have some understanding of the savage era. Outside the crazy mansion auction house, a middle-aged man with silver-white hair was standing straight like a javelin. His eyes were deep and resolute, but there was a hint of anxiety and helplessness in them. Back in the Endless Plains, he had looked down on all living beings, but in the Middle Plains, he had been sharpened to the point that his edges had been polished. His name was Wenshang, Great Emperor Wenshang. He was somewhat similar to Uncle Wen. At the very least, his arrogant gaze was almost the same. "Lord Guangzhong invites you in." The guard very politely led Great Emperor Wenshang into the VIP area of the auction house. Yi Qinghan personally believed that Great Emperor Wenshang looked familiar the moment he saw him. After pondering for a long time, he thought of Uncle Wen's child. He frowned and asked, "Fellow Taoist, is your surname Wen?" Great Emperor Wenshang was stunned. He did not expect Yi Qinghan to know him the first time they met. He quickly nodded and said, I am Wenshang, known as Great Emperor Wenshang in the Endless Plains. I am an ancient great emperor. I wonder if Lord Guangzong has heard of me? So it is you. Please come in. One of your descendants is still cultivating in the outer sect of the Guangzong Manor. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed. He did not expect Great Emperor Wenshang to come to the mythical plane instead of Dao assimilation. Since Lord Guangzong knows me, I will not hide anything. I am here this time to beg Lord Guangzong for help to save my Wen clan in the mythical plane. Great Emperor Wenshang did not enter the room. Instead, he stated his purpose at the door. Yi Qinghan was shocked. Wenshang was a medium god priest. Even if his combat power was not as strong as Guangzong, it should be close. Could there be someone who could make things difficult for the Wen clan? Lord Guangzong, please take action and bring my clan's descendant out of the Broken World Mountain. I am willing to lead my clan to pledge loyalty to the Guangzong Manor. Wenshang bowed and pleaded. The Broken World Mountain was an internal force of God's organization. Wait a moment. I will find a few people to go with me. Yi Qinghan quickly found Xian Yanxue and Shui Er. He then said to Great Emperor Wenshang, Senior, please lead the way. Along the way, Great Emperor Wenshang explained the situation. It turned out that after Great Emperor Wenshang went to the mythical plane, he traveled all the way and settled down in the Broken World Mountain. He married and had children. After more than 100,000 years of development, he developed into a decent clan. However, he was suppressed by the Broken World Mountain. Whenever a talented girl was born, she would be forcefully snatched away by the Broken World Mountain's disciples. If the Wen clan's elite disciples were born, they would be assassinated and suppressed by the Broken World Mountain's disciples. It was very difficult for them to grow. These years, the Broken World Mountain was getting more and more overboard. Not only did they bully the Wen clan, but they also did the same to other clans. If they were light, they would be suppressed. If they were heavy, they would be exterminated. The Broken World Mountain was the dominant force. Many forces wanted to migrate and leave such a force. However, the Broken World Mountain did not agree. If they wanted to leave, they would be killed. Sects and clans without any background could only endure. If they could not endure it, they would take the risk to escape. However, those who could successfully escape were almost negligible. Those who were caught would die miserably. When Wenshang found out that the Guangzong Manor came from the Endless Plain, he rushed over to ask for help. Yi Qinghan was very angry. However, Xian Yanxue and Shui Er were already used to it. Other forces were usually like this, including the Snow Clan. They would suppress the clans and clans under them. They only wanted to be the dominant force. Not many forces would be like the Guangzong Manor, taking the initiative to help other clans grow. Chapter 677. The Broken World Mountain was located at the border of the Myth continent. It was a desolate place with a towering mountain that almost pierced through the heavens. Rubble was everywhere and the nearby mountain ranges were undulating. It was close to the extreme north and was about to be buried by the snow. The living beings were listless and the streets were deserted. All the major clans and sects were seeking survival in this dangerous place. Even if it was just a little bit of resources, they would fight until their heads bled. The true wealth and resources were in the hands of the Broken World Mountain. The smaller clans and sects were struggling desperately and had a hard time developing. Yi Qinghan and company were led by Heavenly Emperor Wenshang. After 3 days, they arrived at the territory of the Broken World Mountain. The army of the Broken World Mountain quickly stopped Wenshang and shouted sternly, Wenshang, you actually left the Broken World Mountain without reporting to the sect. Are you trying to rebel? The young mountain lord has ordered us to capture you. Are you going to follow us or do you need us to take action? Wenshang didn't expect that the other party would get the news after he sneaked out for a few days. He couldn't help but worry about the Wen clan. He said solemnly, I only went out for a tour. Isn't the Broken World Mountain making a big fuss over a small issue? My Wen clan didn't do anything that violated the rules of the Broken World Mountain. What right does the young mountain lord have to capture me? Do we need a reason to capture you? You are suspected of betrayal, and this alone is enough to arrest your entire clan. Now that the Wen clan has been arrested, If you don't want to implicate your clan, you'd better behave yourself. A major said coldly. You guys? Heavenly Emperor Wenshang was burning with rage, but he was helpless. He could only turn to Yi Qinghan for help. Where is the Broken World Mountain? Bring us there. Don't worry. If one of the Wen clan dies, I will bury the young lord of the Broken World Mountain with them. If 10 of them die, I will bury the mountain lord of the Broken World Mountain with them. Yi Qinghan said coldly. What big words. Do you think you are a superior god priest? The major was disdainful. He waved his hand and mobilized the army. He shouted sternly, Go! Take down this disrespectful bastard. Boom! Yi Qinghan waved his saber. His heavy saber radiance and his aura surged to the sky. The 10,000-strong army was completely stunned, especially the major general, who was sent flying back thousands of meters. His reaction speed was beyond anything he had ever experienced. Yi Qinghan. Even though the major had never seen Yi Qinghan before, he knew that 7 feet berserk was capable of shattering heaven and earth. Who would dare to act rashly in front of him? It's good that you know. Scram. Yi Qinghan was disdainful. He could wipe out an army like this by himself. They would not be able to withstand a single blow. If the Quang Manor's army were to charge in, 1,000 of them would be able to crush an army of 10,000. How could the major dare to stop Yi Qinghan? Even a 3-year-old child knew about the rumors surrounding the insane manor. Thus, he led his army and fled into the distance, not even daring to look back. Yi Qinghan's group of 4 quickly rushed towards the Broken World Mountain's entrance. The Broken World Mountain occupied the most prosperous area of the territory. It was incomparably huge, even bigger than the insane manor. Its disciples were arrogant, and people from other factions would lower their heads and take a detour. Shuer was wearing a snow-white robe. Following beside Xian Yanxue, the 4 of them quickly passed through the city and entered the main city. The group of silk pants from the Broken World Mountain were attracted by Shuer's peerless beauty. Seeing Wenshang in front of them, they thought that the 3 of them were from the Wen clan. They immediately rushed over, wanting to tease them. Oh, Wenshang, is this girl from your Wen clan? Are you interested in becoming in-laws with my Broken World Mountain? A young expert stretched out his hand to grab Shuer's face. Xian Yanxue finally found a target to vent her evil fire. She pulled out her sword and slashed wildly, removing all the bones in that person's body. There was not even a trace of flesh. It was even more terrifying than death by 1,000 cuts. Courting death. You dare to attack my Broken World Mountain? Swish. Swish. You dare to tease my woman? I will dig up your ancestral graves. Xian Yanxue was furious. She said to Wenshang, Bring me to the Broken World Mountain to play. Why can't I vent my anger? With Xian Yanxue around, the Broken World Mountain was definitely out of luck. For the past 2 days, Xian Yanshue's mood was extremely depressed. Wherever she went, she would hear people talking about her running around naked. She had lost all her face. Sometimes she even wanted to smash her head into a wall to end it. In the end, even Shuer felt embarrassed, feeling that she had gone overboard. Heavenly Emperor Wenshang brought the 3 of them as they sped past the main city and entered the outer region of the Broken World Mountain. Whoever provoked Xian Yanxue would be unlucky. Killing them would be the easiest punishment, but not dying from 1,000 cuts would be the most terrifying punishment. Yi Qinghan didn't even need to do anything. Instead, he allowed Xian Yanxue to vent her anger. If anyone from the Broken World Mountain looked at him, they would suffer her revenge. Very quickly, a group of experts rushed out from within the Broken World Mountain. There were mid-level god priests who didn't recognize Yi Qinghan, but they recognized Xian Yanxue and Shuer. They couldn't help but angrily say, Wenshang, how dare you? Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you've curried favor with these 2? Xian Yanxue, this isn't your evil faction. Don't be so arrogant. Otherwise, we will suppress you. The evil faction can't say anything. Everyone from the Broken World Mountain was enraged. They surrounded Yi Qinghan and the others, their eyes filled with killing intent. Take them down. Kill anyone who dares to resist. But don't hurt Fairy Shuer. She was captured by Xian Yanxue. At this moment, a handsome young man appeared. His face was pale as though he had not seen the sun for hundreds of years. He looked sickly as though he was lacking in yang qi and had little vitality left. He was the young master of Broken World Mountain, Wen Yu. Wen Yu, it's been a few decades since we last met, but you still need to be taught a lesson. Xian Yanxue laughed coldly. Her sword was filled with evil qi, and it parted the dark clouds to reveal the 9 heavens. Boom! The others charged toward Yi Qinghan and the others. Yi Qinghan's long saber appeared, and with a sweep of it, he sliced through the bodies of more than 10 people. Their divine bodies exploded, and blood dyed the mountain gate red. Wen Yu was shocked out of his wits. Xian Yanshue's sword pierced through his collarbone, and he was suppressed at the foot of the mountain. Yi Qinghan. How dare you? How dare you enter my Broken World Mountain alone? Wen Yu roared in anger. I have always been bold. Tell me, where is the Wen clan? Yi Qinghan's cold gaze pierced into Wen Yu's eyes, and he was so scared that his mind went blank. Wen Yu didn't dare to say much, and he quickly replied, imprisoned in the frosty snow ridge. Remember, if anyone from the Wen clan dies, you will be buried with them. If anyone is humiliated, you will be humiliated 10,000 times. I'm afraid you will kneel and beg me to kill you. Yi Qinghan shouted. Wen Yu was stunned by Yi Qinghan's ruthless gaze. He had never seen such a cold and emotionless gaze. Thinking about the frosty snow ridge, he could only pray that no one from the Wen clan would die from the cold. He also prayed that the army guarding the frosty snow ridge wouldn't humiliate the women of the Wen clan. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. However, he knew that it was impossible for the army to not take advantage of him. His legs trembled, and he was so scared that he wet himself. Wen Shang's face was ashen, and he took the initiative to lead the way to the frosty snow ridge. That was the northernmost part of the Broken World Mountain, and it was the coldest there. It was common for people to freeze to death. How could the Wen clan withstand the cold with so many children and women? Soon, Yi Qinghan brought Wen Yu to a mountain ridge. The army was stationed at the outer perimeter. The depths of the mountain were covered in snow, and snow was still falling. The mountains and rivers were sealed in snow, and even the guards didn't want to move. Chapter 678. Yi Qinghan frowned as he looked into the depths of frigid snow ridge. There were no birds or beasts. This place could freeze people to death. Even God power could not stop the cold from entering. Emperors would definitely be frozen to death. Whoosh! The 4 of them passed through the army and rushed into the mountains with Wen Yu. They found a vast expanse of snow. Many frozen corpses were buried in the snow. Some were even frozen while running. No one knew if they were dead or alive. The people of the Wen clan were exiled here. No one separated. They huddled together for warmth, hoping that they could hold on until Great Emperor Wen Shang came to rescue them. Fortunately, they did so. Otherwise, the children would not be able to hold on. More than 10 men joined forces to cast a barrier to resist the cold air. At this moment, they were shivering from the cold. There were hundreds of people inside, men and women, old and young. Some of the women had bloody scratches on their faces. They had done it on purpose. Only this way would they not be caught and humiliated to death. Hold on, a little longer. An old man shivered. He looked at the children who were dying. He could not help but despair. They could only hold on for a little longer. There were more than 300 people in total. Wen Shang was a medium god. It took more than 100,000 years to develop such a small number of people. One had to admit that it was difficult to develop the Broken World Mountain. Whoosh! 5 figures flashed past and landed in the valley. Shui Air waved her hand and the great path of snow rumbled. The snow formed a barrier, blocking the cold wind and making the people of the Wen clan feel better. Xian Yanxue tore Wen Yu's clothes apart, leaving him with only his underwear. Then she sealed his godhead and threw him into the depths of frigid snow ridge. After a mournful roar, Wen Yu was completely frozen. It could be seen how terrifying the cold qi here was. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and a fire spread, forcing the cold away. The people of the Wen clan immediately woke up. Take them away. Leave frigid snow ridge first. Yi Qinghan said calmly. At that moment, an old man from the Wen clan cried and said to Wen Shang, "Old ancestor, the Tian clan was implicated by our clan. They were all thrown into frigid snow ridge. They should be not far from here." The Tian clan's old ancestor was crippled. Wen Shang was infuriated. His aura surged, no longer willing to suppress it. Back then, the might of the great emperor was vast and mighty, looking down on all living things with disdain. It was as if he had returned to the endless plains, an era when he protected the common people. Shui activated the great Tao of snow, and every snowflake in the frigid snow ridge became her eyes. Soon she found a large group of people, about 300 to 400 of them. Their cultivation levels were extremely low, and they didn't even worship the gods. At this moment, they were madly pouring out their godly power to block off the cold air, so that the children in the tribe could have a chance to live. The Wen clan lord has already asked the Kuang sect for help. Let's not give up. The people of the Tian family were not willing to give up. The Tian family patriarch's legs were cut off, and his divine power could not be restored. He was lifeless and his aura was extremely stifling. Shui stretched out her hand and summoned a snow dragon to sweep the Tian family away. The group of people rushed out of the frigid snow ridge. The army rushed over, but Yi Qinghan used his spatial laws to send them into the depths of the frigid snow ridge. Just as Yi Qinghan was about to head to the Broken World Mountain to settle the score with those people, the mountain chieftain brought a large group of experts and surrounded them. When he saw Yi Qinghan and Xian Yanxue, he was instantly enraged. "Yi Qinghan, don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are the exalted Nine Nether. This is my Broken World Mountain, and you came here alone to kidnap the prisoners of my Broken World Mountain. Do you still put the rest of the world in your eyes?" The mountain chieftain was an old white-haired man with a sage-like demeanor. Unfortunately, the things he did were not related to the word immortal. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at the mountain chieftain and the group of experts. There were 3 prefecture lord-level experts, and including the mountain chieftain, there were only 4 of them. Even if the mountain chieftain was slightly stronger than the prefecture lord-level experts, he was still not a match for Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but sneer. "I really don't put your Broken World Mountain in my eyes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have only brought brothers Xie and Fairy Shui here. Are you using your power to bully others? My Broken World Mountain is not just the Broken World Mountain." The mountain chieftain angrily rebuked. "God's organization? Do you think they would dare to speak up for you? Besides, I don't need to use my power to bully others. I can bully you myself." Yi Qinghan said indifferently. The Broken World Mountain chieftain was speechless upon hearing Yi Qinghan's words. "Since you have nothing else to say, then it's my turn. You have bullied the people of my endless plains for so long. If I don't give you some compensation, then my arrogant manner will lose face." Yi Qinghan said sternly. "I didn't know that he was from your endless plains. Moreover, he is now a citizen of the Broken World Mountain. If there is a problem, I have the right to discipline him." The mountain chieftain said coldly. "I'm sorry, but you really don't have the right to discipline him. No matter what, Senior Wen is still an ancestor of my endless plains. If you humiliate him, then you are humiliating my arrogant manner. I only ask you one thing. Are you going to give me an explanation? If not, then I will use my fist to get an explanation." Yi Qinghan said. "What do you want?" The Broken World Mountain finally compromised. There was no benefit in going against Yi Qinghan now. "Compensate me with 100,000 high-grade god crystals, 1,000 low-grade god sparks, and 50 mid-grade god sparks. Don't bargain with me. If you lack one, you will pay with your life. I will give you 3 breaths of time to consider. If you don't give me an answer, then I will do it myself." Yi Qinghan said domineeringly. The people of the Broken World Mountain were furious. This was simply extortion, just like how they extorted others. However, the situation was reversed. They were being extorted, and the time given was even less. There was no room for negotiation. "This old man will give it to you, but where did you put when you?" The mountain chieftain had no choice but to nod and agree. I threw him into the frigid snow ridge and gave the Wen and Tian families compensation. Go and find him yourself. Yi Qinghan replied bluntly. At this moment, the Broken World Mountain was gnashing their teeth in hatred. However, they didn't know how to repent. They didn't know what others were thinking when they treated others like this. The mountain chieftain took the initiative to take out 100,000 high-grade god crystals and over 1,000 god sparks. Their storage was emptied, but they had no choice but to pay. Otherwise, with Yi Qinghan's attitude, he would destroy the Broken World Mountain. After Yi Qinghan distributed the compensation to the Wen and Tian families, he led everyone back. He wasn't willing to waste time on a border place like the Broken World Mountain. The Broken World Mountain saved the army and Wen Yu with great difficulty and sent a message to God's organization. However, God's organization couldn't give them any help. They only gave them a single sentence: settle it yourself. The Broken World Mountain could only grit their teeth and swallow it down. They couldn't do anything to the Kuang Manor. At this moment, God's organization was on the verge of falling apart. The internal members had conflicts, and most of the external forces had the intention to leave. The powerful God's organization, which was once known as a powerful organization that could destroy a divine nation in a single night, didn't even have the strength to protect itself. Yi Qinghan wasn't interested in God's organization. The most important thing was to develop the Kuang Manor. What he lacked the most now was trustworthy people. A force like the Wen family had a simple background and was also a great emperor. They were completely trustworthy. That was why he didn't hesitate to waste time to come and snatch them. It took 3 days to come, but more than 10 days to return. At this moment, it was close to the end of the year. The first auction of the Kuang Manor had officially begun. Chapter 679. More than 60,000 people had gathered at the Crazy Manor auction house. Many of them were mansion masters. Although they did not attract any superior gods, it was enough. Yao Yan was invited to be the auctioneer, and Emperor Yi was the appraiser. With the divine bird participating, the price would definitely not be wrong. It was very fair, and the guests were full of praises. More importantly, no one would dare to use their influence to suppress the price in the Crazy Manor auction house. No matter how high the price was, the buyers were happy, and the sellers were happy. Yi Qinghan arranged a good location for the Wen clan and the Tian clan. He also rented a shop for the Wen clan. This could be considered as recruiting Wen Shang into the inner sect. The Tian clan's old ancestor was also rescued by Yao Can. He settled down in the Crazy Manor's territory without worry. Yi Qinghan and the other two returned to the auction house. Seeing the treasures being auctioned off one after another, the atmosphere was very harmonious. They could not help but nod in satisfaction. With the beauty effect, it would be hard for the auction not to be popular. Shui Er also joined the crowd of beauties. Together with Yao Yan, Emperor Yi, and Medusa, they were known as the four beauties of the Crazy Manor. The four of them were present at the same time, causing a frenzy. Even some of the mansion masters and elders started to make a fuss, raising the price higher and higher. The atmosphere became livelier and livelier. In order to win a beauty's smile, they spent a lot of money and came back. Yi Qinghan and Wicked Anikshu sat in the VIP room at the top. Yi Qinghan took out the drunken god wine, and Wicked Anikshu's body trembled. She repeatedly waved her hand, indicating that she would never drink the drunken god wine again. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and did not make things difficult for her. He casually took out a large amount of spirit fruits and fine wine, allowing Xian Yanxue to choose. He drank the strongest wine alone and slept with the most beautiful woman. Life was so uneasy. If not for the demon sex feud, this life would be perfect. During the intermission, Emperor Yi played the zither, Medusa danced, Yao Yan clapped her hands, and Shui Er controlled Little Snow. At this moment, life was a great blessing. This trip was not in vain. Everyone thought so. It was so quiet that even breathing could be heard. Yi Qinghan smiled. Now he was the envy of everyone in the world, and he enjoyed this jealousy. As the sound of nature faded away, the crowd remained silent. The sound of the zither was endless, and the applause lasted for a long time. Taking advantage of the applause, A figure appeared in the auction house. His entire body was wrapped in a black robe. He said to the guard beside him in a low voice, "I am Mecca. Go and inform Lord Yi that I want to see him and sell him a piece of information." The guards of Kwang Manor were not arrogant and would never bully others. Although they had never heard of Mecca, they still went to report. The guard knocked on the door of the VIP area and said respectfully, "Sir, there is a man in black called Mecca outside. He said he wants to sell you a piece of information. Do you want him to come up?" Yi Qinghan was bored at the moment. Since he had nothing to do anyway, he said, "Bring him up." Soon, the guard led Mecca to the top floor. He pushed open the door and walked in. The guard automatically left the room and closed the door. Mecca scanned the room and saw that Xian Yanxue was also there. He could not help but hesitate. "Please sit. He's one of us. What is the information? What price do you want to buy?" "Just say it," Yi Qinghan said calmly. Mecca hesitated for a moment, then sat down. He went straight to the point and said, "It is information about a divine treasure. An ancient divine treasure. As for how old it is and what is inside, I do not know. I do not have the ability to open it. I want to cooperate with Kwang Manor." Yi Qinghan put down his wine cup and looked at Mecca. He did not say anything and waited for him to continue. "I know about Kwang Manor and know that the people of your sect are upright people. Just by looking at the happy and harmonious Kwang Manor, I know if fellow Taoist can trust me. Therefore, I choose you as my partner to open the divine treasure. I want 20% of the treasures, and 80% belongs to Kwang Manor. How about it?" Mecca lifted his black veil bamboo hat. He was dressed like a man. He had the heroic spirit of a woman and the ability of a man. If he were a man, he would be enough to make many women bow their heads. If he were a man, he would be a little less masculine. An ancient divine treasure is very valuable. The value inside is huge. Maybe there are 5th-grade divine weapons and secret techniques. Is the family behind you not able to open it? Are you the only one who knows about this divine treasure? Yi Qinghan was very interested. He knew that there was a kind of people who were tomb robbers in the divine world. They knew about the burial place of some giant gods, the 8 trigrams of yin and yang, and astrology. They even knew a lot of things that others did not know. Their ability to find treasures might be better than the goddess. My family has the ability to open it, but not the ability to guard it. Once the divine treasure is opened, it will be earth-shattering and attract a large number of experts. Therefore, I have to find a partner. We are responsible for opening the divine treasure, and your manor is responsible for guarding it. As for the location of the divine treasure, except for me, even the patriarch of my family does not know. I am very careful." Mecca said indifferently. "You are the inheritor of the tomb robbers?" Xian Yanxue asked curiously. Chapter 680. The mythological plane was vast and boundless. There were many places that even the 3 divine nations, the Divine Institute, and the overlords could not explore. There was a poisonous fog that made it difficult to move. Corpses were everywhere. In the extreme south, this was the southern wasteland. There were groups of poisonous snakes and tribes. In the southernmost part of the 3 clear divine nation, there was a forest that stretched for millions of miles. There was no end in sight. Looking down from the sky, from far to near, one could see a majestic aura in the depths. It was as if there was an ancient god looking down on all living things. With a wave of his hand, he could suppress the mountains and rivers of the 9 heavens. With a raise of his foot, he could suppress all living things in the world. However, this place was extremely dangerous. Ordinary people would not approach it. If Mecca did not know the art of stargazing, she would not have explored this place at all. In the depths, there was an endless mountain range. The tallest mountain was hollowed out. 9 divine dragon statues occupied it. Dragon chi gathered there, and divine herbs were everywhere. The divine energy was so dense that it was almost liquid. There were top-grade divine crystals everywhere. One could see a small amount of top-grade divine crystals 1,000 miles away. It was obvious that the resources here were enough to make the divine nations, God organization, and other overlords go crazy. There was a huge cave behind the 9 dragons. 10 meters into the cave, the entrance was sealed off by a stone tablet. Those who did not know anything about formations, let alone a middle mansion master, even the 9 Serenities Lord himself would not be able to open this place. The majestic aura spread out in waves. It was unknown how long this place had existed. The Crazy Manor auction house sold all the treasures for 6 consecutive days. Many people were not satisfied and did not want to leave. However, the Crazy Manor could not rely on this to survive. In addition, there were only 2 days left until the end of the year. The Crazy Manor was decorated with lanterns and banners in preparation for the celebration. There was no trace of fighting. Crazy Manor became a holy land, a huge holy land. Many people wanted to squeeze in, but the territory was limited. To enter Crazy Manor, one had to apply. Only those who were capable and had a clean background could enter Crazy Manor. This kind of ability was not only reflected in battle prowess, but also in other aspects. Crazy Manor would accept even the most useless divine arts. After sending off most of the guests, there were also rogue cultivators who chose to celebrate in the Crazy Manor. The inner sect of the Crazy Manor had all come out of seclusion. Si Huangtian also had a smile on his face. It was as if he had returned to his childhood. Even the slightest benefit would make him happy. The more he grew up, the greedier he became. The Crazy Manor had awakened the joy in many people's hearts. When experts came out of seclusion, they would no longer blindly seek immortality in seclusion. Instead, they would choose to reunite with their families. They would have human feelings and would no longer be high and mighty deities. Crazy Manor was the most joyous. Even Xue did not bring Xue back to the clan. On the eve of the annual celebration, no one used divine spells to keep out the cold. Braziers were set up around the hall, and all the cultivators of the Wild faction were brought to the Wild faction. Even the Wang clan from the Endless Plains and the Inner Sect's dual cultivation partners were brought to the Wild faction. The dozens of children from the ancient slaying god were also brought to the Wild faction, adding to the festive atmosphere. Si Wuxie, Lin Wutian, Zifei, and the others were the oldest among the younger generation. They took the lead and knelt before Yi Qinghan, Gu Qingyu, and the others, begging for red packets. However, the two's tastes were very big. They asked for several tens of thousands of top-grade divine crystals and several tens of thousands of godheads. Yi Qinghan was very happy and didn't refuse. Di Longtian, the child he had brought up, satisfied all of their requests. Lu Outyen and Xia Qiuyue were especially envious. They were the elders, so they couldn't compete with a group of children at the end of the year. Not only did Xia Qiuyue and Lu Outyen not get any resources, but the 3 little fellows also asked for some of their resources. As for the group of children, Yi Qinghan, who was known as Great God Chintian, led more than 46 and 7-year-old children to kneel down. No one could run away. They did not want any rare treasures. Then they looked at the adults with their big eyes. No one could resist this kind of gaze. There was no other way. The 40 inner sect disciples were cheated of many rare treasures. In the end, even Xue and Xue were cheated of hundreds of treasures. However, Xue liked these children and was very happy to give them all. When it was Silo's turn, he was just a poor man. Seeing so many innocent and adorable dolls run up to him and kowtow to him, he scratched his head and looked at Yi Qinghan, not knowing what to do. He didn't have a single supreme treasure on him. Yi Qinghan and the others laughed. In the end, Yi Qinghan gave some treasures on his behalf. The group of children winked at Di Longtian. Only then did everyone understand why these little fellows were so greedy. It turned out that they were instigated by Di Longtian. The group of people drank and made merry. The women mingled together and the men mingled together. Even the topic of beauty and beauty was brought up. It was only at midnight that the crowd dispersed. On this night, the insane sex formation became restless. Divine light shone brightly as the plan to create a baby began. Even Yi Qinghan enjoyed the blessing of having multiple wives. After the children obtained the treasures, they had already gone to split the treasures with Di Longtian. How could they be in the mood to bother the others? After one night, Yi Qinghan's legs went soft. The next day, All the women had a tacit understanding. Their faces were red as they led the children to wander around the insane sect's territory. Many people had a feast for their eyes. They had never seen so many beautiful women at once. Time passed quickly. After the annual celebration, Mecca brought a few elders and patriarchs to the insane sect. It seemed that they could not wait to excavate the divine treasures. Yi Qinghan informed the 9 Remoteness Master. The 9 Remoteness Master seemed to scoff at Yi Qinghan's news. The Middle Plain could not have the ancient tomb of the giant gods. Otherwise, it would have been excavated long ago. How could Yi Qinghan have the chance to excavate it? Hence, the 9 Remoteness Master said, as long as it is the divine treasures of the giant gods, I will do it myself. When Yi Qinghan heard this, he ordered the insane sect to break up and rush to the southern wasteland. Only the army was left to guard the insane sect. The government was handed over to Roger. He himself also rushed to the southern wasteland with Emperor Yi and Medusa. In the end, the insane sect's actions could not be hidden from the spies of the major factions. Such a big commotion, even more so than the challenge tournament. If the insane sect's inner sect was mobilized, it must be something big. The 3 divine kingdoms, God's College, God's Organization, and other overlords immediately became alert. They ordered all their spies to investigate what the insane sect was doing. Soon, the news that the Mei family was also involved in the insane sect's actions was found out. Many people immediately guessed the insane sect's goal. Excavate the divine treasures. Keep a close eye on them. Once you find out where the divine treasures are, report back immediately at all costs. Do not alert them. All the factions with superior gods mobilized their spies. Even a blade of grass or a tree could be a spy. The insane sect's actions were transmitted in all directions. However, Yi Qinghan did not really expect to hide their whereabouts. After all, dozens of people from the inner sect were mobilized. Even Yi Lingxian and Wang Chen were invited. It would be strange if the major factions did not keep an eye on them. A group of people gathered from all directions. A total of 60 people were present. Once they arrived, they needed Mecca to lead the way. The poisonous fog in the sky was too poisonous. They could only walk through the forest. Even the forest was not safe. Without some skills, it would be difficult to reach the destination alive. Chapter 681. 2 chapters combined into one. Don't wait for the next chapter. The 10th chapter is here. Don't wait anymore. Good night. In the southern wasteland, the air was hot and the smell of decay was unpleasant, but it did not affect the inner sect masters. It's very dangerous here. I wasted a year to reach the destination, but I've memorized the route. We can reach in 3 months at most, Mecca said confidently. Lead the way. I'll lead the way. Yi Qinghan took the lead, followed by Emperor Yi and Shui. Xian Yanxue was on the left, and Yi Lingxian was on the right. With Wang Chen, the medicine immortal, there was no need to worry about being poisoned. Everyone pulled out their weapons and rushed into the depths. With so many masters, the ferocious poisonous beasts did not dare to attack. They turned and ran. The group went deeper and deeper. Occasionally, they would meet people from the indigenous tribes. Those people were completely stunned. It was rare to see one person, let alone 60 of them. How could they not be shocked? Yi Qinghan learned about the situation from the indigenous people and hired one to lead the way. 10 mid-grade divine stones a day was not a cheap price. The indigenous people fought to be the first to lead the way. With a middle-level god leading the way, their speed was even faster. They could completely avoid the cliffs and poisonous miasma. They even rarely encountered poisonous beasts. The rank 13-7 demise snake transformed into a big man and followed at the back. He did not care about the poisonous gas at all. Kuang Zong and the others had people in front and behind them. They moved as if they were walking on flat ground. After 2 months, under the leadership of the indigenous hunters, they successfully avoided a large number of poisonous beasts and killed a few top-rank 13 poisonous beasts. They arrived 100 miles away from the mountain range. The spiritual energy here had reached an unimaginable level. They did not even need to absorb it. It drilled into their bodies. They could casually kick away a rock and pick up a divine crystal. The indigenous was stunned. He wanted to pick it up but was worried that Kwang Zong and the others would be angry. He only dared to pick up the mid-grade and low-grade divine crystals at the outermost periphery when Yi Qinghan nodded. Yi Qinghan said to the indigenous, "Don't leave. You can only leave after I've dealt with everything. Do you understand?" The middle-aged man was called Yen Tao. At this moment he was trembling with fear. This place was simply a treasure trove of gods. Divine crystals could be seen everywhere, and they were much more valuable than hunting and gathering herbs. He had obtained such important information. Would this group of people really let him open it instead of silencing him? Don't worry. As long as you stay nearby and mine the mid-grade divine crystals in the surroundings, we definitely won't harm you. However, if you dare to try anything, don't blame me for being merciless, Yi Qinghan warned coldly. Thank you, my lord. Many thanks. I definitely won't leave. But can I really pick up the divine crystals here? Yen Tao's eyes lit up. He realized that there really were a lot of divine crystals here. Even if they were mid-grade divine crystals, there were still several thousand of them. This was the annual expenditure of a tribe. Yes, it's yours if you pick it up. But don't mine it recklessly and ruin my supreme-grade divine crystals. Yi Qinghan nodded and ordered the dozens of experts from the inner sect of the Kwang sect to start mining the divine crystals. Meanwhile, he and the people of the Meika clan approached the mountain range. The 9 dragons coiling the sky guarded a world. It was incomparably powerful and majestic. Even the people from the inner sect felt some pressure. However, they were only focused on mining the divine crystals and were not interested in the depths of the divine tomb. The 9 dragons coiling the sky. 10,000 stars shrouded the sky and gathered the fortune. With the divine crystal mine as the foundation, this is simply a sacred place. Heavens, this old man has lived for so long. To be able to see such a great tomb, my life has not been in vain. The elder of the Meika clan burst into tears as he looked at the 9 divine dragons coiling around the mountain range. Even in the daytime, he could see the twinkling stars. He was ecstatic and could not control himself. Ancestor, there must be a great sovereign buried here. Could it be a legendary existence? The people of the Meika clan were excited. As a tomb raider, they did not seek to steal many treasures, but to be able to witness the birth of a supreme existence. I don't know. It could also be a fake tomb left behind by a supreme existence. But with such a scale, even if it is a fake tomb, there should be a lot of burial goods. That kind of existence can see through the situation and will definitely know that a descendant has descended. They will arrange for opportunities so that the descendant will not be angry and destroy this place. The elder of the Meika clan said excitedly. Yi Qinghan did not know what kind of existence the 9 dragons coiling the sky was, but he knew that there were peerless treasures here. Even if there were not peerless experts buried here, there must be some rare treasures buried here. I smell something. The divine bird rushed out from Yi Qinghan's body. The start-twisting vine also rushed out. The vine extended and wrapped around the divine medicines and began to devour them. There were divine medicines everywhere. Many of them had already transformed and left. Yi Qinghan did not stop them. As long as they did not transform, they were just medicines and supplements. There was nothing that could not be devoured. Ancestors, do you have the confidence to open this place? I'm worried that a peerless expert has set up a restriction here. Although Meika was excited, she also knew that this place was very dangerous. How many opportunities there were was accompanied by how many dangers there were. It was normal for people to die here. We will do our best. If we can die under such a great formation, we will die without regrets. The few old men were especially excited and were not afraid of the danger at all. The elder of the Meika clan was the first to lead her clansmen to kneel in front of the cave. They were extremely respectful. Junior is from the tomb raiding lineage. Today, we took the liberty to come here with no intention of disturbing Senior's rest. We only wish to let the great barbaric era descend upon this world and beg the ancient ancestors for their blessings. Dong dong dong. The group of people knelt on the ground and kowtowed 9 times. Each of them represented their sincerity. Afterwards, the elder of the Mecha clan picked up a stone and threw it into the cave. This was called throwing a stone to test the waters. It was also asking the ancient ancestors if they could enter the tomb. Once the ancestors were spiritually aware and did not allow entry, there would definitely be a reaction from the cave. Tomb raiders were very superstitious. Once there was a reaction, and a strong one at that, they would not enter even if there was a secret technique in the tomb. Otherwise, it would bring misfortune. Their own death was a small matter, but implicating their clansmen was a big matter. Dong, a crisp sound echoed unceasingly. It was oppressive and dignified, carrying with it an austere aura that made people's hair stand on end. Mei Ka's expression changed slightly. She knew this was not a good response. Otherwise, there would not be such a strong killing intent. As expected, the expressions of the Mecha clan's tomb raiding lineage changed slightly. They wanted to retreat. Yi Qinghan did not understand. He frowned and asked, "What's wrong? Shouldn't this be normal? For such a dignified ancient tomb to have a bit of killing intent is the most normal thing for me. If there was no killing intent, I would find it extremely strange." "Young man, you don't understand. This means that the ancient supreme existence hates it when others disturb his rest," the elder of the Mecha clan said in a low voice. "Because of the killing intent?" Yi Qinghan was very curious. He could not hear any problems. "It's not killing intent, but the rhythm of the killing intent. It's low and slow, vast and dignified. This is the hint of the supreme existence. This place is extremely dignified and cannot be desecrated," the elder of the Mecha clan explained in a low voice. "You mean you want to give up?" Yi Qinghan was somewhat dissatisfied. After wasting so much time, they wanted to give up just because of a little echo. This was making a mountain out of a molehill. "Yes. Once the spirit of the supreme powerhouse is angered, misfortune will befall. Even our clansmen will be implicated. Brother Yi, I hope you will reconsider," the elder of the Mecha clan said firmly. "We can first mine the divine crystals. With so many top-grade divine crystals, it's already a great opportunity. As for the things inside the tomb, if we are destined, we can naturally enter. If not, don't force it. What do you think?" Mei Ka suggested. The formation enchantment on the tomb could only be opened by the tomb raiding lineage's special methods. Since Mei Ka and the others did not agree to open the tomb, Yi Qinghan could not force it. After all, this was their experience. It was not that there was no saying that it would affect the future generations. He did not want to take the risk. In the end, Mei Ka suggested that whoever mined the divine crystals would get to keep it. There was no need to split it 20 to 80. This was beneficial to the Kuang sect and could be considered as an explanation to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan nodded in agreement and began to mine the divine crystals from the periphery. The outermost region was also filled with mid-grade divine crystals. The inner sect powerhouses had brought along a large number of yin and yang rings with large internal spaces. Some of them were personally created by Yi Qinghan using the law of space. They could hold hundreds of millions of mid-grade divine crystals. With 60 Manor Lord-level existences mining together, their speed was definitely faster than an army of a few 100,000. Even Yen Tao had been hired by Yi Qinghan to mine, and he had been promised a 10% commission no matter how much he mined. At this moment, Yen Tao was pleasantly surprised. He did not ask for much from Yi Qinghan. All he wanted was for him to leave this place alive. The group of people mined day and night. Soon, the outermost region was emptied. As they neared the high-grade divine crystals, the divine qi became thicker and thicker. The more they mined, the more excited they became. They did not feel tired at all. The mine was very wide and was 1,000 meters deep. Even a square meter could yield 1,000 divine crystals. Moreover, the mine was hundreds of miles wide, and it even extended to the depths. It was impossible to measure. However, Yi Qinghan and the others were not interested in low-grade divine crystals. They only cared about the hundreds of miles around them. As they dug deeper and deeper, top-grade divine crystals began to appear. One ring after another was filled. Everyone was filled with enthusiasm, especially Di Long Tian. He wanted nothing more than to dig out all the divine crystals and properly nurture the ancient massacre god. Even his spirit pet, the divine dragon, was forced out to help. In less than a month after Yi Qinghan and the others started mining, the 3 divine kingdoms, the 3 great academies, God's organization, and other overlords all received the news and started to rush to the southern wasteland. When they were less than 1,000 miles away, the crazy manners started to mine the top-grade divine crystals. As for how many mid-grade divine crystals they had excavated, no one knew. Even the inner sect did not know. However, there was an approximate number of top-grade divine crystals. One person had excavated about 3 million pieces of top-grade divine crystals, and over 40 people had excavated a total of 100 million pieces of top-grade divine crystals. 100 million was a huge number. It was equivalent to the entire stockpile of all the major forces in the divine realm. Moreover, they had only excavated half of it. There was still a small part of it. After excavating all of it, it would reach 200 million. The various forces did not know that Yi Qinghan and the others were excavating top-grade divine crystals. Otherwise, they would have chased after them with all their might. They sent scouts to the periphery and discovered a lot of low-grade and mid-grade divine crystals. They thought that the crazy manor was excavating mid-grade divine crystal veins. All the major forces said that they would let them excavate for now. When Yi Qinghan and the others opened the boundary of the Great Tomb, they would reap the benefits and fight for the divine treasures. Half a year later, Yi Qinghan and the others excavated a layer of rock. It was incomparably hard. Even Yi Qinghan could not break it with his 10-direction seal. Thus, they had to give up. They could not excavate any further. As they dug deeper, they found even more useless rocks. Occasionally, they would find some top-grade divine crystals. Yi Qinghan did not want to waste any more time, so he finished the work and filled up the 100 miles deep pit with rocks. However, Yi Qinghan found traces of the scouts and could not help but sneer. He thought to himself, "You want to reap the benefits? I will make sure you don't even get the soup." Chapter 682. When Yi Qinghan discovered the spies' tracks, he ordered the multicolored snake to track them down and discovered that the major factions were stationed several thousand li away. Many of the higher god shrines were present. The top 10 factions had all arrived. It seemed that the Plum clan had a certain level of prestige. Just by cooperating with Yi Qinghan, they had attracted so many people. When the Plum clan found out that so many factions had arrived, they were even more reluctant to open the divine treasury. They had obtained several 100 million high-grade crystals and close to 10 million top-grade crystals. This was enough for them to develop. Their current foundation was even richer than a divine nation. If they opened the divine treasury now, it would be like drawing water with a bamboo basket. The number of high-grade and top-grade crystals obtained by the crazed manor was even greater. Even Yi Lingxian and Wang Chen had obtained close to 10 million top-grade crystals. One could only imagine how many top-grade crystals they had obtained. Yi Qinghan wasn't satisfied with just the crystals. What was more important was the secret techniques. The 15th and 16th grade secret techniques were the most important. We can take this opportunity to dig a hole and bury these higher god shrines. Then, wouldn't the mythological plane be under the control of my crazed manor? The divine bird was full of ambition. Dig a hole and bury the higher god shrines alive? Everyone was shocked. This wasn't a joke. The higher god shrines were indeed higher god shrines. They were much more powerful than the crazed manor lord. Li Feng could defeat the crazed manor lord, let alone the higher god shrines. The higher god shrines definitely can't open this ancient tomb. Otherwise, they would have rushed here long ago. So, once we open it, they will definitely rush in. At that time, we will seal the tomb and let none of them come out alive. The divine bird chuckled. Everyone felt a chill run down their spine. The divine bird was too ambitious. It was one thing to trick the crazed manor lord, but what if it buried all the higher gods of the mythological plane alive? Yi Qinghan thought about it for a moment, but in the end, he shook his head and rejected this shocking proposal. It wasn't that he didn't want to kill the 3 high gods of God's organization. Those three were constantly trying to kill him, but once the high gods of the mythical plane were killed, the other planes would definitely invade. At that time, the entire mythical plane would fall. Even if Crazy House didn't become slaves, the entire plane would be plunged into disaster. Planar wars were the cruelest and most ruthless of wars. Apart from suppression, there was also slaughter. Let's retreat and say that we can't open the tomb of the god of sin. The Mei clan leader suggested to Yi Qinghan. Teach me how to open the tomb of the gods, I want to try. Yi Qinghan wasn't willing to give up. Even if he couldn't, there was still the 9 Serenities master behind him. The opportunity was right in front of him, so he couldn't give it up. There really will be inauspicious things. My clan's inheritance has been passed down for 1,000,000 years, and this is a bloody lesson. Manor Lord Yi, you have to reconsider. The clan chief was helpless as he advised in a low voice. I've experienced things even more inauspicious than this. Yi Qinghan's willpower was firm. Looking at the dark cave, he felt that there was a special calling for him. He was sure that there was a supreme treasure waiting for him inside. This divine bird also feels that there are treasures here. Retreating in the face of a treasure is indeed not our style. The divine bird flew into the cave and looked left and right. It didn't find any cracks on the stone tablet inside the cave. It was as if the tablet and the body of the mountain were carved with inscriptions that could block any kind of divine force. The people of the Kuang Manor also didn't want to give up. Which one of them hadn't gone through hundreds of battles and experienced life and death situations? How could they give up on such a huge divine treasury just because of a so-called inauspicious thing? If I was afraid of death, I wouldn't have cultivated until now. Since the Mei clan doesn't dare to make a move, we'll find the entrance ourselves. The Heavenly Monkey King said in a muffled voice. Yi Qinghan nodded and entered the cave. Looking at the inscriptions on the stone tablet, they were filled with profound mysteries. This was a type of mystery that had never been seen before. Only the ancient master gods could understand it. In order to open this place, one must first understand the ancient inscriptions. Only the tomb-raiding families would study these inscriptions. Even the superior gods couldn't understand them. Yi Qinghan pressed his 5 fingers on the stone tablet. Under the control of the 5 elements, his divine sense kept invading the interior of the stone tablet. However, the moment his divine sense came into contact with the inscriptions, it was instantly repelled. His soul felt a tearing pain. Humph, Yi Qinghan groaned. His face was pale, and he no longer used his divine sense to probe. Everyone wanted to go in, except for the people of the Mei clan. However, Mecha also wanted to try, so he entered the cave alone. Looking around, he found that the interior of the cave was natural. Even the stone walls outside were protected by inscriptions. There were no flaws at all. A majestic aura kept bursting out. Some of the weaker cultivators of the inner sect turned pale and had no choice but to retreat from the cave. Buzzed at a low sound reverberated through the sky. There was no killing intent, but it made people's hearts beat wildly as if they were about to explode. Puffed. The remaining 10 or so people coughed up blood at the same time. Even an experienced tomb raider like Mecha was sent flying. Cough, cough, cough. Outside the cave, everyone was breathing heavily. Mecha looked at Yi Qinghan and the others in shock and asked, "Did any of you touch anything just now?" Everyone frowned and shook their heads. Just now, they had only used their eyes to observe the stone tablet. No one touched the stone tablet or the inscriptions. Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched. He couldn't help but walk towards the cave again. He looked up at the dome. The dome was in the shape of an arc. There were carvings of mythical beasts, mythical flowers, and a few naughty children riding mythical beasts. The mythical beasts were galloping forward. In front of them was a huge mountain range. There was a cave. Yi Qinghan hurriedly returned to the cave. Looking at the cave from the outside, he found that it was almost the same as what was described above. It was just that there were no mythical beasts or naughty children. I think I just used my divine sense to touch the pattern on the dome, Yi Qinghan said seriously. Mecha hurriedly ran into the cave and looked up at the dome. Her pupils shrank and she said in shock, "This mythical beast is a Pishio, a chaotic mythical beast. the son of the Chaos Dragon. It can swallow everything in the world. To be able to carve such a perfect Pishio, you must have seen it with your own eyes. This tomb must be the tomb of a king god or above. The Plum clan leader was also shocked. She didn't expect this tomb to have such a great background. Was it really an illusion? Was it really just the majesty of a king god? The Plum clan leader was shocked. She slowly led her people into the cave. Looking up at the dome, she found that the mythical beasts were all the sons of the Chaos Dragon. The origins of the children were even more shocking. They had divine emperor headbands on their heads and were riding on the sons of the Chaos Dragon. They were definitely the descendants of the supreme god. This is impossible. Could this be the tomb of the supreme god's descendants? How could it be in such a middle plane? The Plum clan leader muttered to herself. The middle plane was the border of the chaos world. As for the small plane, it was purely a desolate place. How could the descendants of the supreme god be buried in the border? The matters of the chaos era, even the tomb robbers who had a heritage of millions of years did not know much. The current era and the chaos era were two completely different worlds. There was a gap in between. Many things were incomprehensible. Chapter 683. At the end of the southern wasteland, the laws of space were chaotic. Sometimes, there would be space turbulence. There was a mountain range at the end of the southern wasteland. Several Plum clan elders were studying the inscriptions. When they touched them with a bit of divine force, endless divine radiance would erupt, and their might would overflow into the heavens. The ancient inscriptions were difficult to understand. Yi Qinghan did not understand them. Even Xian Yanxue did not understand them. They had been lost for a long time. Mecha and her clansmen were forming hand seals to harmonize with the inscriptions. Boom! A wave of divine radiance shattered mountains and rivers, directly sending experts flying tens of thousands of li away. Those above the divine shrine level were all sent flying, but those below the divine shrine level were completely unaffected. Yi Qinghan and the others flew back several hundred meters and tumbled dozens of times. Yen Tao's cultivation was the weakest, so he was the least affected. His group was covered in dirt and grime. The dozen or so high-level god priests who were thousands of miles away were the most miserable. Their divine armors were broken, as if they had encountered a terrifying attack. They were riddled with wounds, and their bodies broke through the mountain range. They crawled up with difficulty and looked toward the end. This is definitely the tomb of an ancient giant god. The same thought flashed in everyone's mind. Opportunity and danger coexisted. The tomb of the divine god could release such terrifying power. There must be a huge treasure hidden in it. In the voracious wolf plain, a divine light covered the sky and swept across the entire plain, alarming countless experts. Many major forces led their supreme experts to the other side of the tomb of the god of sin. The two huge plains didn't separate because of this tomb of the god of sin. The appearance of the tomb of the god of sin not only alarmed the mythical plain but also the voracious wolf plain. Before Yi Qinghan and the others entered the tomb, Wu Yu, High God Shenkuan, and the others had already arrived outside the cave. High God Longyuan appeared in front of Yi Qinghan and stood between Yi Qinghan and the three high gods. Yi Qinghan knew that Longyuan was afraid that the three high gods would be angry and kill Kuang Zong. Although he knew that the three high gods would not dare to do so, he was still grateful. Whoosh! Another figure descended. His white hair fluttered in the wind, but in reality he was extremely vigorous. There was an unconcealable heroic spirit about him. He must have been an outstanding existence when he was young. Xian Yanshue's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly brought Shui heir forward. She bowed and said, "Grandpa, this is your granddaughter-in-law Shui heir." It turned out that he was the ancestor of the evil branch, the evil sovereign. He was younger than the three high gods of God's organization, but he was indeed a high god, and his battle prowess was not weak either. Otherwise, God's organization would not have retreated and stopped invading the evil branch's territory. The evil Zun looked at Shui and nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, the little princess of the Shui clan, the snow god body. I can't believe her old monster is willing to marry her off. Shui blushed and bowed. Xianyan Shui smiled awkwardly and said truthfully, I stole it. The evil celestial looked at Xianyan Shui, and instead of reprimanding her he laughed and said, Haha, well done. I was the one who stole your grandmother back then. Everyone was speechless. How could there be such an elder? Like ancestor, like grandson. Shui could not raise her head, and she did not know how to respond. However, everyone's attention was attracted by the tomb of the God of Gods. The light of the inscription was getting weaker and weaker, and when it completely dimmed, the defense of the stone tablet would disappear. The people of the Plum clan were still focused on breaking the stone door. At this moment, the 9 dragons were exuding a majestic aura, as if they were alive. They were compatible with Yi Qinghan's draconic aura, causing his aura to soar. Everyone was suffocated by the pressure, and even the high god felt a little strange. The evil sovereign looked at Yi Qinghan. He naturally knew about the eccentric sect, and he could not help but nod inwardly. He stood on the side of the eccentric sect, and with his relationship with Xianyan Shui, he would not sit by and do nothing. Moreover, he did not have a good impression of God's organization. Of the 3 brothers, except for him, the other 2 had died in the hands of God's organization. The inscription completely dimmed, and High God Qinghan could not wait any longer and punched the stone tablet. Boom! A burst of energy came from the depths of the stone tablet, and it directly bounced back. The iron fist shattered, and blood spurted out. After a tearing scream, High God Qinghan flew back hundreds of meters and hit a rock. He almost fainted on the spot. The people of the Plum clan looked at each other. They did not expect High God Qinghan to hit the barrier set by the Master God with his fist before the last barrier was broken. It was good enough that he was not killed by the rebound, which only meant that he was not strong enough. If 9 Serenity Lord punched the barrier, he would definitely be killed by the rebound force. High God Qinghan did not understand. At this moment, his face twitched. The pain was piercing and it came from the soul. It was even more painful than 9 Serenity Lord's brutal beating. Ha! The people of the eccentric sect laughed, especially the divine bird, who did not show any respect at all. He shouted, It turns out that an old tortoise will feel pain when he hits the wall. Although the other high gods were gloating, they could still hold it in. However, Long Yuan and the evil sovereign did not want to hold back and laughed as well. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see a high god Qinghan make a fool of himself. High god Qinghan snorted and stopped moving. This time, the people of the Plum clan did not rush to break the last barrier. Instead, they turned to the crowd and said, Fellow cultivators and seniors, the Plum clan discovered this place and is responsible for breaking the prohibition. However, we can't leave without any benefits, so... Shangqing and the other strong cultivators stood out and asked calmly, What do you want? Without the people of the Plum clan, these people could not enter at all. As long as the Plum clan's request was not excessive, these people had to agree. As for whether they could fulfill their promise after entering, it depended on whether the high god Qinghan was shameless and whether the things inside were attractive enough. The Plum clan wants 10% of the treasures you get after entering the divine treasure, but we don't want divine gems as compensation. The Plum clan does not lack divine gems. The Plum clan leader had obtained millions of supreme-grade treasures and more than 100 million upper-grade treasures. It was more than the treasures of the 3 divine kingdoms. Obviously, she was not interested in divine gems anymore. 10%? That was not a small amount. If they obtained the 5th-grade secret skill, they would naturally share it with the Plum clan. Kuang Zong nodded without hesitation. Without the Plum clan, no one could enter, let alone obtain the treasures. No problem, the evil clan agrees, the evil dominator said calmly. The sacred dragon divine kingdom agrees as well, Long Yuan said. The Powa divine kingdom agrees as well. Soon, the 3 colleges and the high god Qinghan all nodded. Only the 3 high god Qinghan's high god Qinghan hesitated. The Plum clan did not need to enter the divine treasure and could get 10% of the treasures for free. It was more than the other forces. Gods Qinghan had always taken advantage of others. How could they let the Plum clan have the biggest slice of the pie this time? If gods Qinghan did not agree, The Plum clan would not make a move. Everyone frowned and looked at the three from gods Qinghan. High God Wuyo and the others were helpless. They still hoped to earn more in the divine treasure to make up for the loss of 500,000 supreme-grade treasures. They could only nod and agree. At that moment, 9 remoteness masters suddenly appeared in front of the Kuang zone. The people of the Plum clan were overjoyed. They quickly bowed and said, "Welcome, High God. Please be our witness." The Plum clan is only good at deciphering inscriptions and finding treasures. We do not have any strength. If they do not keep their word, the Plum clan can do nothing about it. "All right, I will make the decision for you and open the last barrier," 9 remoteness masters said calmly. Chapter 684. The people of the Plum clan kowtowed respectfully. They knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. They cut their veins and sprinkled their blood in an extremely strange manner. No one spoke. There was a special method to open the divine treasury. They didn't understand it and didn't know why they had to do this. However, the Plum clan knew that this step was very crucial. If they missed any key point, it would lead to misfortune. The lightest consequence would be death. Yi Qinghan and the rest stared unblinkingly at the people of the Plum clan. The 9 dragons moved and rotated continuously. Half of the dragon's head faced east and the other half faced west. The largest dragon statue, which was 100 meters long, aimed at the cave entrance and bared its fangs. The dragon's roar was like the descent of a real dragon. Everyone was astonished. They felt as if a real dragon had appeared. The pressure was unbearable even for the high-ranking god priests. Yi Qinghan's dragon blood began to boil and churn. It flowed 100 times faster than normal. It was even more frenzied than during the battle. His long hair danced in the wind and the heavy weapon in his hand trembled slightly. It was as if he had been greatly stimulated and even lost control of his body. Emperor Yi and the rest were the first to notice the problem. They noticed that Yi Qinghan's eyes were suffused with a golden glow. His heartbeat was as powerful as a real dragon's. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat was frantic and orderly. It was oppressive and could even affect the heartbeat of others. Yi Qinghan's eyes were focused on the cave entrance. The stone door was split into 2 from the middle. A white light flashed past and blinded everyone. The people of the Plum clan didn't say anything. Coupled with the lesson learned from the high god of heaven and earth, no one dared to take the lead and rush in. "Enter." A deep voice filled with majesty and gloominess rang out. It was as if a person who had died millions of years ago had spoken. The voice wasn't heard by everyone. Instead, it exploded in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. Yi Qinghan's body trembled. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. Yes, it was fear. This was different from the second-generation shaman god. This was an ancient master god who had died millions or even tens of millions of years ago. Although the second-generation shaman god was an ancient master god, he hadn't died. It was just that his body had died while his soul had survived. "Enter." The voice rang out again. Yi Qinghan's legs began to move uncontrollably towards the cave. Yi Qinghan's eyes were deep and there was fear in them. However, his legs continued to move, which surprised everyone. Based on Yi Qinghan's expression, it was clear that he was afraid, so why was he still moving forward? 9 remoteness master frowned and squinted his eyes as he watched the light recede in the deep cave, revealing a deep passageway. There was still light inside, and the passageway extended in all directions. It was like a palace, exuding a majestic aura that was even more terrifying than 9 remoteness hall. Instantly, other than Yi Qinghan, no one was willing to enter. But since Yi Qinghan had moved, the inner sect disciples had no choice but to move. Emperor Yi followed closely behind and kept getting closer to the hole. Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth and controlled himself. He said in a low voice, "Don't go in. Get out." The inner sect disciple hesitated for a moment before stopping in his tracks. "Qinghan, what's going on?" Xianyan Xue frowned and looked at Yi Qinghan. His legs were still moving forward uncontrollably, but he was asking the others to back off. It was completely unreasonable. "I don't know. It's very dangerous inside." I'll go in by myself. Yi Qinghan was expressionless as he quickened his pace. The 9 dragons were imposing without being angry. They wanted to transform into dragons and leave. A low melody rushed out from the cave. It was solemn and solemn, suppressing the hearts and souls of the heroes. Dong dong dong, Yi Qinghan's heartbeat was deafening. Everyone watched as Yi Qinghan disappeared into the cave. 9 remoteness master followed in without hesitation. The moment he entered, the others all rushed in as well. A horse wouldn't get fat without eating at night. How could one catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? After all, the high-level god priests rushed in, Xianyan Xue and Xue Er also rushed in. The inner sect disciples hesitated as they looked at Emperor Yi and Gu Qingyu. Gu Qingyu stepped into the cave with firm steps. The Plum clan elder and the others were quietly guarding outside. There was no need for them to take any risks. 10% of their profits had already been decided. Emperor Yi also rushed in. Yi Lingxian, Wang Qin, and Stan Huangtian also didn't hesitate. Nie Tian and the other powerful existences finally couldn't wait any longer. If they wanted to become stronger, they couldn't always rely on Yi Qinghan. They also had to work hard. At this time, apart from a few people who were slightly weaker, the rest of the inner sect had all entered. As soon as Yi Qinghan entered the cave, time and space changed. He was actually directly transported away. The space suddenly changed. It was as if they had entered another world. The inside of the cave was actually a world of its own. It was connected in all directions. There were still inscriptions on the rocks inside. It couldn't be broken at all. As long as they were trapped, they could only wait for death. Apart from the tomb robbers, no one could break this inscription barrier. Whoosh! At the rocks inside the cave suddenly made a muffled sound. They actually started to change positions. It was like a maze. There was nothing in the tunnel. They were the first group of experts to enter. There wasn't even a trace of wind in the cave. This meant that the world inside the cave was completely sealed. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes to look at the passageway. There were many smaller passageways extending out. There were stone doors on the walls of the passageways. Some were open, while others were sealed. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to enter recklessly. Those deep stone doors were like the entrances to hell. Once one entered, there was no way out. Divine bird, come out. As soon as Yi Qinghan entered the cave, the invisible force controlling him disappeared. He could finally move freely. The divine bird stretched its head out and looked at the deep caves. It was a bit speechless and whispered, "What a strange divine treasury. It can actually block my divine sense. Which of these stone doors can be entered?" Yi Qinghan asked in a low voice. The divine bird shook its head in confusion. It couldn't see through this place. However, it quickly nodded and said, "Kick the star-twining vine out and let it stretch out its vines to probe. We can try one by one. Anyway, we have plenty of time. We don't dare to enter recklessly, and neither do others. We don't have to worry about the treasures being taken away by them." Yi Qinghan thought about it. It made sense. This place was so eerie and terrifying. If they were trapped, they could forget about leaving alive. Those high god priests were definitely more afraid of death than they were. The star-twining vine came out of Yi Qinghan's body. It was as though Yi Qinghan had grown vines himself. They constantly stretched out towards the surrounding stone doors. Some of the vines had just entered the stone doors and were instantly crushed. The profound mysteries of the spatial laws of a master god could instantly crush the divine body of a high god priest, let alone the star-twining vine. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan flashed and entered a stone door that didn't have vines. He took out a luminous pearl and illuminated the space. There was actually a galaxy hidden behind the small stone door. Hiss hiss hiss, Yi Qinghan and the divine bird sucked in a breath of cold air. They felt as though they were standing in the starry sky, overlooking the vast universe. Apart from the stars, there was nothing else. The stars flickered, hiding a faintly discernible profound law. If not for Yi Qinghan's mastery of the spatial laws, which allowed him to control the 10-direction seal, he wouldn't have been able to sense the profound mysteries hidden behind this stone door. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like torches as he stared fixedly at this galaxy. He released his divine sense as though he was in harmony with this galaxy, becoming the creator of this place. Chapter 685. Half an hour after Yi Qinghan and the superior god priest entered the divine tomb, all the powerful figures arrived and rushed in without hesitation. Li Feng walked in with his sword, leaving no one suspicious. Nearly 1,000 powerful figures entered the tomb, including almost all the mansion masters. The Plum clan elder sighed sadly and said, "This is a tomb. I'm afraid less than 30% of the people will be able to walk out." In the inner sect, Zi did not enter but waited quietly. Her cultivation was not suitable to enter this place. Looking at the expressions of the Plum clan elders, she was very worried about the people of the insane sect. In the tomb, some people entered some stone doors. Shrill screams could be heard as blood mist overflowed from the stone doors. It was extremely terrifying. The mansion masters were powerful figures in the mythical realm. In just a few breaths, 7 or 8 of them had died. Nearly 1,000 people entered the divine treasury, but it was not crowded at all. Instead, they were scattered in the divine tomb and did not have a chance to meet. The people of the inner sect tied each other with ropes and took care of each other. When they encountered an open stone door, Emperor Yi tested it with his zither to reduce the loss. The 3 powerful figures of the gods' organization found that the communication talisman had lost its function, but their eyes were filled with killing intent. Who would know that they were the ones who killed people in the divine tomb? Heaven and Earth High God sneered and said to himself, "Yi Qinghan, insane sect, today is the day you pay the price." Heaven and Earth High God was not the only one who wanted to destroy the insane sect. Wuyo and the Middle Heavenly God also had killing intent in their eyes. The mythical realm did not need a new force, especially someone like Yi Qinghan who had the Lord of the Abyss behind him. Outside the divine tomb, no one dared to make a move. However, it was different inside the divine tomb. If they killed someone, the Lord of the Abyss would not be able to find a trace. Until now, nearly 1,000 people had entered the divine tomb, but no one had found the real opportunity. Most of them did not enter to kill, but to search for treasures. However, once someone found an opportunity, they would want to kill and steal it. Within the divine treasure vault, every step was filled with danger and killing intent, and the slightest carelessness would cause one to perish. Without absolute certainty, no one would choose to make a move. Throwing stones to test the waters became the most common method. If there were no stones, they would use divine crystals. Only Mecha was holding his dagger and relying on his knowledge of tomb raiding to observe. He had a certain degree of certainty in his heart about which stone doors could not be entered. Yi Qinghan was still within the stone door, meditating on the profound mysteries of the laws of space. The profound mysteries used by a sovereign were definitely 100 times, 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times more powerful than what he, a god, was capable of. The multicolored snake wandered alone, seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages. It was actually able to avoid the dangerous stone door and quietly appeared in a room. There were several rows of bookshelves in the room, and on them were various secret technique books. There were also a few very simple-looking weapons. They did not have the slightest luster, but they gave off a dignified aura. The multicolored snake continued to grow in size, trying to sweep away the weapons and mystic Dao techniques. However, as soon as it came into contact with the weapons, the power within the weapons knocked it away. Boom! The colorful snake was sent flying and hit the stone door. It was hit by the inscriptions again. Roared at the colorful snake, let out a miserable cry and quickly rushed out of the room. It ran back to Yi Qinghan's room and constantly tore at Yi Qinghan's clothes. Yi Qinghan had just entered a meditative state and was comprehending the laws of space. He was perfecting his own profound mysteries when he was awakened by the colorful snake. Seeing its hurried and disheveled appearance, he could not help but stand up and follow it out. Just as he stepped out of the door, he bumped into High God Wuyu. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank, and he stood at the door without moving. High God Wuyu's eyes were full of murderous intent, undisguised murderous intent. "Brat, there's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you barge in." High God Wu Yu sneered and rushed forward, dragging Yi Qinghan back into the stone door. Yi Qinghan did not hesitate to retreat into the starry sky. His figure flashed as he fled. Fighting against a high god was definitely courting death. Yi Qinghan took the lead and rushed into the depths of the vast galaxy. Although he did not know what was in the depths, he knew that if he stayed behind, he would have no chance to fight against High God Wu Yu. High God Wu Yu blocked the stone door and looked at the starry sky. Yi Qinghan had already disappeared without a trace. High God Wu Yu snorted and said with disdain, "Brat, since I've blocked you here, then obediently come out. You can't escape." Although Yi Qinghan's law of space had reached grand completion, he still could not travel through the divine tomb. This was another space-time of this world. If he wanted to leave, there might not be a second path besides the stone door. But since the stone door was blocked, he could only choose another method. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was hiding in the spatial star. He did not dare to make the slightest movement for fear of being discovered by High God Wu Yu. High God Wu Yu stepped into the galaxy. His eyes were like torches that pierced through the void. He wanted to find Yi Qinghan's hiding place. A cold smile hung on the corner of his mouth. A high god was indeed a high god. How could he allow a junior to hide in front of him? Boom! High God Wu Yu shattered a star with a punch. His aura soared into the galaxy, but in the blink of an eye, the star recovered as if it had been attacked. "Let's lure this old dog to the death door." The divine bird secretly transmitted to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's breathing was steady. He had become one with the space here without any fluctuation in his emotions. At this moment, there was no way for him to lure High God Wu Yu away. Escaping this calamity was already a blessing from the underworld. Think of a way to leave from another place. "Let's leave this door first." Yi Qinghan secretly communicated. Yi Qinghan looked around. There was no way out. Deep in the depths was the boundless galaxy. In front of him was High God Wu Yu. The distance between them was less than 1,000 miles. For a High God Wu Yu, it was just a blink of an eye. High God Wu Yu frowned. A dignified High God Wu Yu actually couldn't find Yi Qinghan's hiding place. Boom! The High God Wu Yu's aura covered the sky and swept through the mountains and rivers. It wanted to force Yi Qinghan out. The aura stopped a few meters in front of Yi Qinghan. As long as the opponent's aura surged forward, Yi Qinghan would definitely appear. The divine bird's hair stood on end. It was almost unable to hold it in. Once he appeared, it would be like an eagle catching a chick. Yi Qinghan's black hair fluttered behind him. Using the mysteries of space, he gently moved backward. He didn't dare to make any big movements. Slowly, Yi Qinghan hid behind a star. Using the star to block High God Wu Yu's line of sight, he moved deeper into the galaxy. The moment Yi Qinghan moved, High God Wu Yu felt a strand of spatial fluctuation. He stepped onto the star that Yi Qinghan had just hidden behind. Looking down at the galaxy, he still couldn't find any trace of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan had already run several thousand miles away. At this time, he couldn't care less about his face. He constantly shuttled through the stars, rolling and crawling on the stars. He would hide wherever there was a mountain. Finally, after running 10,000 miles away, he felt that High God Wu Yu wouldn't be able to find him anymore. Only then did he stop to catch his breath. He looked around and observed the evolution of the universe. He understood the principle of the cycle of the Great Tao. Chapter 686. Yi Qinghan leaned against the boulder and looked up at the galaxy. It didn't seem to be any different from the outside world, except that there was no life here. This was a universe created by the overgods and couldn't give birth to living things. This was the difference between the overgods and the ancient giant gods. It was rumored that during the primal chaos era, the giant gods could create their own worlds and become the overlords of their own worlds. They would have countless descendants and become the supreme creator gods. Yi Qinghan slowly closed his eyes and expanded his consciousness, trying to understand the principles of this world. The space here was exceptionally stable, much more stable than the middle planes outside. Even a high god couldn't destroy it. Even if a star was shattered, it would quickly recover. It was almost impossible to tear open space. One had to be at least at the overgod level to leave. The 9 remoteness lord couldn't do it, and neither could High God Wu Yu. As for Yi Qinghan, he didn't even think about it. There must be a way to leave this place. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and looked through the void. He discovered that the arrangement of the stars in this galaxy actually contained the 8 trigrams and 72 dippers, forming a huge maze. Only by finding the exit would one be able to leave this place without going through the stone door. Yi Qinghan was very familiar with the 8 trigrams dipper formation. Although the Overgod's formation was much more profound than his, at least he had some understanding of it. According to his deductions, he was teleported back to the original locations several times. He couldn't find the real exit. Yi Qinghan didn't give up and kept searching. After an unknown amount of time, he finally reached the deepest part of the maze. At the end of the maze, there was a stone door. As soon as Yi Qinghan exited the stone door, he realized that this was the entrance from before. They could actually walk out of the same exit from different routes. The Overgod's understanding of the 8 trigrams was simply unimaginable. At the stone door, Yi Qinghan tried to find a way to seal the door and suffocate High God Wu Yu. Suddenly, the divine bird touched the runes, and the stone door slowly closed. The rustling sound shocked High God Wu Yu. Boom! You're courting death. High God Worryless sword pierced through space-time and instantly passed through the gap. If Yi Qinghan hadn't dodged fast enough, this sword would have directly killed him. Bang! The sword rainbow collided with the inscriptions on the stone wall, and its power was immediately absorbed by the inscriptions without causing any ripples. Yi Qinghan hurriedly dodged. He saw that the stone door was getting smaller and smaller, and Worryless was getting closer and closer to the stone door. He didn't know if he could seal Worryless, so he brought the divine bird and rushed into the depths. When he passed by the stone door discovered by the multicolored snake, he directly rushed in. With a wave of his hand, he stored all the secret art manuals and weapons into his universe ring. There was even a divine weapon that was actually a superior god artifact. It was a very delicate dagger, and the universe ring couldn't store it at all. Yi Qinghan picked up the dagger and inserted it into his combat boots. Then he turned around and fled. Just as High God Wu Yu reached the stone door, it was completely sealed. His head slammed into the stone door, causing his head to bleed and feel dizzy. Ugh! Damn Yi Qinghan! High God Wu Yu roared in anger, but he couldn't do anything to the stone door. He could only find another way to leave this place. Yi Qinghan and the divine bird saw that the stone door was sealed and immediately burst into laughter. Even if they couldn't kill High God Wu Yu this time, they wouldn't be able to obtain any benefits. More and more people entered the tomb, and more people died. Many young talents received the news and rushed over from the mythological plane. Even the top 3 supreme experts on the wind cloud leaderboard were here. Chen Aotian, one of Yi Qinghan's external reinforcements a few days ago, had also sneaked in with a face full of excitement. He was a very young rogue cultivator and had no resources or foundation. He went around doing temporary jobs for major factions to earn cultivation resources. At this moment, he didn't hesitate to rush into the depths. He only wanted to obtain some supreme treasures. Even if he could obtain some supreme-grade divine crystals, it would be good enough. Emperor Yi and the others slowly explored. With Emperor Ye's zither playing as the vanguard, they didn't encounter any danger. They went through many stone doors and actually found some treasures. Although they weren't supreme treasures, they were still at least on the level of a rector. The deeper they went, the larger the space behind the stone door became. Even if there were supreme treasures inside, there would still be danger. The stone door seemed to be open, but when someone entered, it would instantly seal. Whether or not they could come out alive would depend on their own strength and luck. The disciples of the inner sect encountered a few high god priests, but knowing that the inner sect was backed by the Lord of the Abyss, they did not dare to kill anyone to steal the treasures. If they failed to steal the treasures and one of them escaped, the Lord of the Abyss would hunt them down endlessly. Yi Qinghan didn't know that most of the inner sect disciples had entered the tomb. At this moment he was cautiously advancing. It was unknown whether it was fate or not, but he actually bumped into Li Feng. Both of them were startled for a moment, then became vigilant. However, Li Feng wasn't too vigilant and just nodded casually. Yi Qinghan wasn't a threat to him. Even a high god would have a hard time killing him here. Li Feng nodded and said, "Rector Yi, are you interested in joining forces to hunt for treasures? I know a little about inscriptions, but I don't seem to have much luck. Instead of wasting time, why don't we work together and split the loot 50-50? What do you think?" Yi Qinghan's luck had always been good. Ever since Li Feng learned that the Nine Serenities Lord was Yi Qinghan's master, he began to think highly of Yi Qinghan. Now, he actually took the initiative to ask for an alliance. Yi Qinghan learned that Li Feng actually knew ancient inscriptions. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to join forces. At this moment, he could already control the 10-direction seal. If he used it here, it wouldn't attract the attention of experts. If he and Li Feng fought, it was hard to tell who would win. "All right, 50-50 it is," Yi Qinghan said calmly. Li Feng calmly said, "Very straightforward. I apologize for my actions a few days ago. I hope that Rector Yi won't take it to heart." Yi Qinghan gave a stuffy snort and didn't want to bring up the past again. Now that benefits were in front of him, he had to first obtain the benefits. As the saying goes, there are no eternal enemies, only eternal benefits. Li Feng wasn't a mortal enemy, so they could definitely work together. The divine bird didn't understand inscriptions. It was only a coincidence that it had locked up High God Worryless. With Li Feng joining forces, Yi Qinghan began to consider the caves that were sealed by stone doors. If they were sealed, then there were either dangers or supreme treasures inside. The two gradually went deeper. Some of the stone doors were sealed in front of their eyes. Their reverence for the sovereign gods grew. They didn't know how long these palaces had existed, but they were still in operation and couldn't be destroyed. From this, one could see just how terrifying these people were. The passageways extended for thousands of miles. It was hard to imagine that the space within this tomb would be so large. The passageways extended in all directions, and there were rooms piled up with stones everywhere. Whether these rooms were heaven or hell, no one knew. It all depended on luck. Those who were lucky would obtain supreme treasures, and those who were unlucky would die. At this time, Mecha was constantly searching for supreme treasures on the small paths. He bumped into Yi Qinghan and Li Feng. Yi Qinghan kindly nodded and decided to let him stay. After all, he didn't completely trust Li Feng. With Mecha by his side, even if Li Feng locked him in a room, he would be able to quickly escape. "Okay, let's split up. Mecha, if you are blocked by them, don't resist. They need you to lead the way." Li Feng let go of Mecha and randomly chose a direction to rush out. Yi Qinghan rushed in another direction, while Mecha chose an open stone door to hide in. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan moved quickly with his saber in hand. He even took the initiative to attract the attention of the 9 Linked Mountains experts. "Yi Qinghan is there. Little 9. The 4 of you go deal with Yi Qinghan. The few of us old fellows will take down Li Feng." The few old men from the 9 Linked Mountains chased after Li Feng, wanting to kill him as well. 9 warlords and 3 middle-aged men rushed towards Yi Qinghan, but there were too many passages. Yi Qinghan was constantly changing, and it was difficult to block them. "Let's split up and chase after him. We'll block him in one of the passages." 9 warlords was confident that any one of them could kill Yi Qinghan, so they chose to split up. This was the result that Yi Qinghan wanted. Yi Qinghan kept shuttling through the passages, wanting to widen the distance between these people and finish them off. 9 Linked Mountains was known as the #1 holy land in the mythological plane. It had always been aloof and did not participate in worldly affairs. It was incomparably arrogant and looked down on everyone in the world. That was why a few elders had appeared. They did not care about Yi Qinghan and Li Feng, nor did they care about offending the 9 Remoteness Master and the 3 Clear Divine Kingdom. They did not care about Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan and Li Feng did not care about them either. Moreover, this was the divine tomb. If they killed them, so be it. What could the Holy Land do? 9 warlords kept chasing after Yi Qinghan. It had to be said that the people of the Holy Land were strong. 9 warlords was from the younger generation and was not more than 2,000 years old, but he could fight evenly with Yi Qinghan. If there was someone over 3,000 years old, he might be able to fight evenly with Li Feng. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A sharp sword appeared in 9 warlords' hand, and he kept closing in on Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's figure suddenly flashed and turned again, shooting into the depths. He reached out and grabbed, and the delicate dagger that he had just obtained appeared in his hand. He took a few turns with the dagger and hid in the corner of an open house. His breathing was restrained, and he did not make a sound, waiting for the other party's experts to appear. The divine bird directly returned to Yi Qinghan's body. 9 battles king had lost him. He stood at the fork in the road with a frown. There were passages and stone doors everywhere. When one didn't enter, the interior was pitch black and he couldn't see clearly. Only after entering would one see another world. However, some of the stone doors were death doors. Chapter 689. In the passageway of the divine tomb, Li Feng stood in one of the passageways, looking at 3 old men and a burly man at the crossroads. The coldness in his eyes made one's hair stand on end. His figure flashed and suddenly disappeared, reappearing in front of the burly man. He drew his sword. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air caused the stable space of the divine tomb to fluctuate. The burly man opened his mouth to roar, but his throat seemed to be stuck. His eyes were full of fear and despair. Poochie! The sword light pierced through the burly man's head, piercing through his godhead. The powerful sword energy caused an irreparable wound, destroying all of the burly man's vitality. Sheathe the sword. He left. The 3 old men had just pulled out their swords and turned around when they saw the burly man's head explode. Before his corpse fell, Li Feng had already disappeared. It was too fast, so fast that they couldn't understand it. Hissed! The 3 peak middle-level experts sucked in a breath of cold air. They had never seen such a powerful expert at the same level as them. Be careful. Don't split up, let's meet up with little 9. One of the old men reminded, but before he could finish, a sword light split into several and shot out from all 4 passageways at the same time. It was as if Li Feng had clones. Be careful. Another old man was shocked, and he drew his sword to attack the sword light. Boom! The 3 old men erupted at the same time. Divine power poured out and slammed into the stone wall inscriptions. The rebounding force immediately blurred their vision, and the 3 of them were in a mess. Hummed! A sword whistling sound tore through their eardrums, causing their hair to stand on end. They roared in fear and anger. Li Feng, you dare to make an enemy of the 9 linked mountains? Poochie! Bang bang bang. 3 consecutive sword strikes. The sword light accurately pierced the throats of the 3 old men. The sword energy turned into a terrifying killing intent that swept through their limbs and bones. The 3 old men roared in fear and anger. They found that Li Feng's killing intent had ignored their divine power defense and exploded instantly. It was like a star exploding, rushing into the galaxy and shattering all of their vitality. You were wrong to provoke me. When Li Feng appeared, his body wasn't stained with blood. A drop of essence blood flowed on the tip of his sword, and after it fell, it was like a cleansing light. Hummed! Sheathing his sword, Li Feng turned around and left. Killing 4 experts, 3 of whom were at the same level as him, was effortless. On the other side, Yi Qinghan killed 2 deacons with a single slash and took the initiative to block the 9 Wars King. This supreme expert known to be under 2,000 years old had encountered the murderous god Yi Qinghan. Sparks shot out from his eyes. You killed the 2 of them? 9 Wars King questioned sternly. That's right. I'll send you to accompany them now. Yi Qinghan gave up on using berserk. In such a small space, it wasn't suitable for him to fight openly. It wasn't a problem for him to deal with 2 attendants, but against a powerhouse like 9 warlords, he would be suppressed. The 9 Wars King was enraged as he roared, Yi Qinghan, I want you dead. I want your crazed sect destroyed. 9 Wars King drew his sword. This was a top-grade god artifact, one of the 10 great god artifacts. The 9 consecutive sword was one of the guardian treasures of the 9 consecutive mountains. It could be used in conjunction with the 9 consecutive sword technique, allowing one sword to become 9 swords. Each sword was more powerful than the last, and when the 9 swords were unleashed, it could suppress all experts. Up until now, no one of the younger generation had been able to withstand the 8th sword of 9 Wars King, much less force him to use the 9th sword. Die for me! Swish, swish, swish. 9 Wars King continuously slashed out 7 times, attacking in all directions. He wanted to directly kill Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan drew his dagger. For better or for worse, it was a high god artifact. Yi Qinghan wasn't worried about it being destroyed at all, and he immediately attacked the 9 consecutive sword. 9 Wars King didn't know that Yi Qinghan was wielding a high god artifact, and instead laughed loudly. You're courting death. No one in the world dares to take my 9 consecutive sword head-on. Bang, bang. Yi Qinghan exploded with terrifying power. 5 elements divine power wrapped around the dagger, and it directly collided with the 9 consecutive sword. A crisp sound rang out, and 9 Wars King frantically retreated. Staring at the 9 consecutive sword in his hand, his eyes were dazed. He had never imagined that this would be the outcome. The 9 consecutive sword had been broken. It had been cut apart like tofu by the dagger. No! 9 Wars King bellowed loudly, his face savage. The 9 consecutive sword had been broken. This was even more painful than the death of the 3 executors of the 9 consecutive mountains. Yi Qinghan was disdainful, but without waiting for his opponent to react, he brandished his dagger and directly charged forward, engaging 9 Wars King in close combat. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone had their strengths and weaknesses. In a short distance, this small dagger in Yi Qinghan's hands was simply 1,000 times more powerful than a maniac. Under its attack, the defensive godly armor was even more fragile than tofu. In terms of close combat, how could 9 Wars King be Yi Qinghan's match? He was forced to retreat repeatedly, unable to shake off Yi Qinghan no matter what. Instead, several pieces of flesh were torn off by Yi Qinghan. Apart from screaming, 9 Wars King didn't seem to have any viable moves. Yi Qinghan couldn't tell, but Li Feng could see that the inscriptions here had a very strong sense of protection. It seemed to be guarding something. The two of them looked at each other and decided to open it. Chief Yi, you guard the stone door. Miss Mecha and I will decipher the inscriptions, Li Feng said calmly, full of interest. Yi Qinghan left the cave, and Mecha walked in. The 3 of them each had their own division of labor. Yi Qinghan only needed to defend and not let anyone come close. The technical work depended on the 2 of them. With Li Feng joining in, the 2 of them discussed with each other, and the speed of deciphering the inscriptions increased several times. In just half an hour, more than half of the restrictions were broken. After another half an hour, the last restriction was broken. The 3 of them looked at each other and discussed for a while. Of the treasures here, Marika would get 40%. After all, she was the one who discovered this place and opened the restriction. It wasn't excessive for her to monopolize 40% of the treasures. Yi Qinghan and Li Feng each took 30%. After discussing, the 3 of them opened the stone door together. A huge room appeared in their line of sight. More than 100 fist-sized luminous pearls made the room particularly beautiful. The surrounding walls were protected by inscriptions. The order of the inscriptions was different. It would take at least a year to completely decipher them. The furnishings in the room were very simple. There were 3 shelves arranged in order. The first shelf had a row of jade bottles containing golden elixirs. There were a total of 3 bottles. The first bottle was the Heavenly Soul Elixir, the best 14th grade soul-type elixir. The second bottle was the Heaven Reversal Elixir. This was a 15th grade elixir. It was enough to revive the dead. As long as one didn't die, they could recover in an instant. The current forging technique had long been lost. A Heaven Reversal Elixir was equivalent to a life. It was difficult to exchange for 1,000,000 top-grade elixirs. It was a priceless treasure. The third bottle was the Strength Recovery Elixir. It was a 15th grade elixir. It was still the exclusive pet of the superior god. A single elixir could fill the divine power of a superior god. A single elixir was worth the life of a superior god. Any one of them would be auctioned for at least 100,000 top-grade elixirs. Each bottle was filled with elixirs. There were at least 100 of them. The three of them looked at each other. None of them made a move to compete. Since they had already discussed the distribution, they would strictly distribute according to the agreement. However, Mecca's palms were sweating. The things here were too valuable. If she took them out, she would probably be coveted by others. It might even lead to the destruction of her clan. Therefore, she didn't dare to take the treasures. Mecca hesitated.